What's up, everyone? We're back. It's GameFace, episode 357. Here on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield. We're back after missing a week of GameFace, and alongside me to do that, but I wasn't sure it was going to happen, is Matt Kyle. Matt, you've had a bit of a rough road since we last saw you, right?
Yeah, it was finally got COVID.
Yeah, not only did Matt
3.5 years streak broken.
Yeah, not only that, you had COVID when we did the last show.
Yeah, it was incubating. At the time.
He got sick the very next day after we recorded the last episode of GameFace, and I slid by. I did not get it.
I thought it was my allergies, and then Thursday night I had a bad fever, and I'm like, well, this is an allergy. So I decided to take one of the home tests just out of curiosity, and as soon as the liquid hit the thing, just blind. I was like, oh, okay. I'll wait the 15 minutes, but I think I see where we're going.
I need to, yeah.
Like, it was darker than the control line. Like, it was. If
anyone's taking a COVID test, you know exactly what he's talking about.
No doubt. So that was fun. So so the day Starfield came out, I got COVID. It
is kind of crazy that you were sitting there and I was sitting here for 3.5 hours and I didn't get it.
Well, I wasn't symptomatic, so you had an advantage. I mean, the big worry is when people are coughing
already. Yeah. But still, I think it does show you that social distancing and a lot of the stuff the scientists were telling us worked.
Well, and also, some of it's just this new variant gets around some defense, because it's not like I've stayed home a lot. Once I got vaccinated, I was out. I've been movies almost every week. I haven't worn a mask in a movie theater since November. And my doctor, actually, I thought I got it at the Magic Castle on Monday night. My doctor thinks I probably got it at the grocery store Friday afternoon. Because he's like 2 days is possible for incubation, but it's fast, and more normal would be 4 to 5 days, and that matches up with having been at the grocery store on Friday. So I'm going to start wearing a mask to the grocery store again, I think, but because I don't need to do that again.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that if you do get it, get that Paxlovid, because I felt better 2 hours after taking the first dose.
It works, yeah.
And so basically all I did for a while was play Starfield and sleep, and not bad if you can get it. But
yeah.
Luckily, I did not get the brain fog, and I did not lose my sense of taste, which were my two things I really didn't want. Because if I can't taste anything, that sucks. Also, because usually when I'm sick, I don't want to eat and I don't want to drop. I was hungry the whole time when I had this thing.
Me too. I was really hungry when I had COVID.
There was absolutely no nausea. There was absolutely no anything. I was like, no, I just need. I was ordering food in constantly. I felt
like my body was telling me to eat.
Yeah, I probably needed fuel.
I need it. Give me food, and I ate like crazy when I had COVID.
And it was, so that was interesting. And then it was. Other than that, it was not terrible. The third day, my throat was horrible from coughing the previous days because I hadn't controlled the cough properly because I just thought it was my allergies. And then, by Saturday, it was like daggers in my throat every time I swallowed, which was purely physical damage from the coughing. The COVID symptoms were fine. They were controlled pretty well by the Paxlovid, except for I would get a fever at 11:30 at night, and then it would go away at 2 in the morning. 3 days in a row that happened.
COVID is the weirdest.
To the point of the third day, the third time, I was like, okay, I just got to make it to 2. And sure enough, right at 2 a.m., fine. Felt fine.
COVID is weird. I've never felt like I felt when I had COVID.
It is the weirdest disease I have ever had.
It is bizarre.
It is incredibly strange.
I agree. Well, we're all glad that you're okay. You've come through it okay. Feeling 100% yet?
No.
Yeah. It takes a little while.
I'm still pretty tired. I ended up kind of almost nocturnal, because of the sleep,
because of the timing
disruption and everything. And I'm still a little I'm a little lightheaded right now, actually. Yeah. Just from I haven't
talking a lot,
and I haven't actually had to sit down and do anything.
Where you concentrate.
I concentrate. There's an element of I got to do this for 3 hours. I haven't had to actually do anything for any length of time without being able to get up and walk away from it for 2 weeks.
Well, Matt, in the past, it's always been me who's been going through something, and I'm if I need to tap out. If you feel like you need to tap out today, just let us know. This is kind of a bonus episode.
Oh, Starfield's going to get this work. Like it's no, don't doubt that. We'll make it through that.
Yeah, I mean, I just got back into town 30 hours ago or something. I got in really late on Monday night, so there's no way we could have done it yesterday.
Well, I've been awake for about an hour and a half, so here we are.
Yep. But anyway, we wanted to squeeze one in because we did not do a show last week. Although I hope you guys appreciated all the work that I did before I left for my vacation to make sure that there was content running through the channels the whole time I was gone. It actually worked out perfectly. I will say this, having to work on Sifted on a little laptop with a screen this big was not ideal. I probably need to invest in a laptop for working on the road because I have an old little mini netbook or whatever that I use. But otherwise, I think everything went great. Like, I got some comments from people on YouTube who are like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be on vacation. But I had done all that stuff before I left. In fact, my pre-val of Starfield finished at 3 in the morning, and I had to get on the flight at 7:45. So I got it done just in the nick of time. But anyway, hope you guys appreciate it. I literally did 3 weeks of work in a week to take that vacation. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the content going through the channels, and we're back. And we're back for good for the rest of the year. We'll be rocking GameFace every Tuesday here on Twitch, every Wednesday archives for our patrons until the end of the year. So lots of big stuff coming. Luckily, we haven't talked about Starfield yet. That's going to be a big focus of today's show. Matt also played Sea of Stars. We're going to talk about that. And then next week's show is huge. We're going to have a bunch of big games in fact, I think just for the rest of the year, GameFace is going to be awesome. There's just so many great games coming out. I don't know how we're going to do October, honestly. I'm starting to look at it now, and I'm starting to think it might not be feasible for two people to get through everything. So we're going to do our best, as we always do. Again, thanks to everybody for your patience, allowing me to go on vacation for a little while. But hopefully you didn't notice too much that I was gone. I tried to work as hard as I could to make sure that was the case.
Well, also, even if you hadn't gone, we wouldn't have done the show.
Right. So. It's funny how it all worked out. The only thing that didn't work out is we're a little late talking about Starfield, other than the fact that I put up my pre-val on way before the day it came out, and then I put it up on our YouTube channel on the day the game actually came out for everybody. So that all kind of worked out anyway. But we have not heard Matt's opinion yet on Starfield, so you definitely want to buckle up and hold on for that coming a little bit in GameFace 357. We've been apart for a while. Let's bring up chat and see what you guys have been up to. Lots of Twitch Prime in here, it looks like. We're already at level 2 of the hype train. Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Toast9, thank you for Twitch Prime. Let's scroll up here. Andy T. Monahan, thank you. Cody S. Carter, thank you. Ammo Clip 20, thank you. Episode 357, you're fitting right in there, bro. Thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. Who else we got in here? B. Martin 3223, thank you for Twitch Prime. And he says, I recently sold all my PlayStation stuff. Sony is becoming way too expensive. We're going to talk about something that became more expensive at PlayStation Land here in the housekeeping. So we'll just keep that in mind. B. Martin, welcome to the show. Ptor91, thank you. Kai Meal 1983, thank you. Who else we got in here? Swosho, Wampler 13, and I think that's it. Yep. But anyway, I realize a lot of people probably may not show up today because it is a Wednesday. We don't normally do GameFace on a Wednesday. David5807, thank you. Justin Horman, thank you. Miss GameFace a ton. My week isn't the same without it. Thank you, matter of fact. I really appreciate that. And I miss doing the show, too. I used to say back when I worked at Game Trailers that my favorite day of the week was the day that we recorded Invisible Walls, and I feel the same way about GameFace. It's my favorite day of the week. It's the best day of the week. Totally miss hanging out with you guys, talking games. I think the cool thing about today is that you guys will have also played Starfield. And so after we're done with our discussion, we're going to go to our chat and we're going to look at what you guys are saying about the game to provide kind of an alternative perspective from what Matt and I have. So if I didn't mention it, Emperor Dread, thank you for Twitch Prime as well. I saw Eric Cartmenez took a shot at me over the Steelers. Fair enough. They got their butts kicked by the Niners. But I will remind you, and AJ the Legend reminds me as well, I will remind you that the Steelers started 2-4 last year and still had more than 8 wins. So just a little reminder that Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season, and you bet against that. So we'll see how it goes. It'll be fun to watch for the entire season. Anything else you want to get off your chest, Matt, before we get going into the housekeeping?
No. If we're going to talk football, I did really enjoy watching Aaron Rodgers' Achilles snap over again in that replay.
That's crazy, man. He played 4 plays and then his Achilles snapped.
My favorite thing on that was, because for those who don't know, Aaron Rodgers is a big vaccine denier and
no, that's right, he is,
and anti-medicine, and his doctors don't know anything kind of
maybe
person.
He can go take some ayahuasca and his Achilles will heal back together.
I saw there was a great. My favorite tweet about it was someone was like, Aaron Rodgers bathed his entire body in ivermectin before the game to be invincible to all injury, but unfortunately his personal trainer held him by the ankle
when he dipped him in the horse paste.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful.
I don't wish a torn Achilles on anybody, not even Aaron Rodgers. That is one of the most painful things you can go through.
I just appreciated that that is in fact the myth of Achilles.
Right. So
it's like,
oh yeah, I didn't even put that together.
It's a brilliant joke.
That's great. Yep, that's pretty good. So anyway, I think we're ready to get on with the housekeeping for today's episode. We're going to start things off with Nintendo. By the way, there's a Nintendo Direct tomorrow that was just announced today.
But was leaked about 3 days ago.
Right. And we're going to talk about what we think might be in that in a minute. But the biggest story from Nintendo over the last week is that stories are now coming out, Matt, that at Gamescom, Nintendo was there with the successor to Switch, and they were showing it off to developers. And I guess what most of the reports coming out of that are that people were blown away by whatever the Switch 2, Super Switch, whatever they end up calling it, were blown away by what they saw. Some people said that it looked like PlayStation 5 level visuals thanks to DLSS.
Okay.
Which I have a hard time believing.
Yeah, I'm going to say the people that Nintendo has chosen to show the Switch 2 for the first time are probably going to be leaning in a certain direction on that.
Well, they were developers, so I don't know what developers would be leaning.
There's certainly Nintendo weirdos in development.
Yeah,
I assure you.
And my guess is the person who would be leaking that information would be inclined in that direction. So I see where you're coming from there. I also don't believe it, even though they
I mean, I'm sure there's a jump from the Switch because using DLSS makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they even mentioned that. That the DLSS was what was helping it and blah, blah, blah. So they did try to kind of, I don't know, hedge their bet a little bit on that by saying it's not that the hardware is that powerful.
Also, again, how big is the screen? What resolution it's running at?
Yeah.
Like, are you running the Matrix demo 1080p? Yeah, it's going to look all right.
Yeah.
Well, they actually that size.
They said, one, they ran the Matrix demo, but also they ran Breath of the Wild, some special version of Breath of the Wild that they had built to run on the new hardware.
You might as well sell us that one again. I mean, come on.
Well, I don't think it was about that. I think it was they wanted to show a game that everybody knew what it looked like.
But also...
Yeah, right. They're going to sell it again.
This is not our first day with Nintendo, right?
Yeah. So I'm with you. Like, I don't believe that even with DLSS, it's going to look like PlayStation 5 level visuals. That's just a stretch too far for me.
No.
But I do think it's at least a little bit encouraging that they were impressed by the visuals at least.
Yeah, I mean, noticeable is good.
Yeah. That they noticed it enough to say something about it, I think, is a positive sign. That maybe the Switch the Switch 2 isn't going to be miles and miles behind the other
Just a mile or so.
Just 1 mile behind the other consoles. Look, they said that it ran the Matrix demo in real time. That's pretty impressive, I think.
I mean, Unreal Engine 5 support is important because otherwise you're going to lose out on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But DLSS is going to help you through that. It's going to really matter about game-to-game support. Mm-hmm. Some games use that better than others. And you can fit. It's not because anything's stuck. You can always update it and improve the ghosting or improve whatever. But yeah, I mean that's a viable strategy. It's good to see that they're thinking of that. But I don't know. Like, I'll wait and see what the hell this thing is going to be, because it's like, if we're honest, I'm going to play Nintendo games on this and that's it.
Yeah.
I can't think it can run Unreal Engine 5 as well as it wants. It's not going to run it as well as a PS5 or a Series X or my PC, so who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is it's going to be a handheld. And so you have to worry about battery life. You have to worry about heat. You have to worry about, battery life is a big deal because so much ties into the power of the system with the battery life. So, if the system's really powerful, okay, that's possible, but you're going to get like 30 minutes of play before the battery's dead. So that's a balancing act that Nintendo always has to consider when it's working on its hardware. Mm-hmm. So my guess is the final version of whatever it is, Switch 2, Super Switch, or whatever, is probably going to be a notch or two below what they showed the people at Gamescom. That'd be my guess. Once they start working on the practicality of getting it into a form factor.
Let's not forget that, like, we've seen Unreal Engine 5 games at this point, and they don't look like that Matrix demo.
No, they don't, actually.
So.
Yeah, which is kind of disappointing.
Well, there's not a lot happening under the hood of the Matrix demo. There's not a lot of game there.
No, you're right.
You know,
yeah,
so you can throw everything at the
graphics. Yeah, and when you got to consider all the other stuff,
it
takes a hit. So I think overall it's good news, though. I think most people didn't expect this news at all. Like, I think most people expected when they heard about it for the first time, they're going to be like, yeah, you know, it's like PS4 level, Xbox One level.
Well, the other thing to note is, like, you can, because of where we've advanced in the hardware, like, you can use kind of older hardware in the same way the Switch 1 does in comparison to when it came out.
Yeah.
But you can add in those tricks like DLSS and maybe even some kind of, like, rudimentary ray tracing thing. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a lot of things you can add in there, even to older hardware, that can give you a little leap. So
yeah,
so that'll be fine. You know, we'll wait and see what it looks like and wait and see what it costs. But, like, hopefully they're not going to resell all the accessories to us again. They will.
They will.
How about just Joy-Cons that work?
Right.
You know, like, not that it ever bothered me because I've never used the Joy-Cons for anything, but, like, everyone I know has stick drift on those things.
Yeah, well,
some kind or another.
Nintendo just filed a patent that's supposed to fix that. So just in time for the new hardware, I might add. So hopefully they have a better design for the analog sticks for the next Switch. I also wonder too if the next Switch will have an OLED screen, or if they'll go back to the cheaper LCD screen. That's what I figure. And they'll do the same thing they did with the first Switch, where later on they'll release a more expensive version with the better OLED screen. That's just my guess. But
yeah, I thought that people who had seen it at this thing were saying it wasn't. It was just LCD.
No, really? I didn't see
that's what I read. Who knows if that was true or not.
Yeah.
But no, I would never expect it to have an OLED screen.
Yeah. So anyway, that's really the first initial news we have about the next Nintendo Switch, and I think it's encouraging. It's better than the alternative, which would have been like, yep, it's like Switch Plus or whatever.
Yeah,
so
well, you show me Metroid Prime 4 and we'll talk.
Yep. That's probably going to be the big breaking point, I would argue, for a lot of people to see how that game looks. I think that'll be the harbinger of what's to come for that system when we finally get a real look at it, and not just this stupid teaser trailer we've been showing on GameFace for the last, like, 5 or 6 years at this point, which is crazy.
I hope that guy and his hair are doing well these days.
Next up, Starfield. Smashing success. Smashing commercial success. We're going to talk about the game itself a little later on here in the show for the first time, really, on GameFace. But regardless of what we think of it, or what you think of it, or what all the people out there think of it, it's a smashing success. It's Bethesda's best launch ever for a game. Are you surprised by that at all, Matt?
No.
No?
Like, it's a universal theme, and Skyrim. Yeah. I mean, I remember being surprised that Skyrim hit as big as it did at the time, because as someone who'd been playing Bethesda stuff since Morrowind, it was just one of those things where I never really expected that to break into the mainstream. It just wasn't a kind of game that people played en masse. You know, it was like, because what were the mainstream games at the time? Were like fighting games and shooters?
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
Like, the idea that would be a thing was just in racing games, like it was, you know, in sports games, but like, the idea of like a giant first-person RPG open world sandbox being a thing that people would get really into in the millions was not a thing then. But now, like, everybody does stuff like that, and it's a very natural extension. Fallout 4 did okay, and space is big. You know, like you know, look at this thing and it's an exciting idea. Like, people that I know who never talk to me about games have asked me about this game, going all the way back to that June reveal thing they did, and like. As soon as I found out that people that I know who don't pay attention to video game news were somehow seeing that Starfield 45-minute demo, I was like, okay, this thing's breaking
through,
in a way that just most stuff doesn't.
Are you surprised that there's so many people who apparently, it appears, have bought it instead of just going on Game Pass and just paying $15 for the month and playing it?
Not really.
Yeah.
I bought it.
Is it one of those games you think people look at it like it's a keeper and they'll keep going back to it?
Matter of fact, I did get the collector's edition. I forgot to bring it up.
Oh.
It's downstairs.
Oh,
with the little the case and the watch and all that stuff.
Well, maybe we can find a break at some point and you can run down and grab it. But I was actually a little surprised that so many people bought it. Like, I thought it would be a boon to Game Pass, and maybe it is. I'm a little surprised Microsoft hasn't issued a press release yet talking about the boost to Game Pass. Like, I wouldn't guess they'd say raw numbers, but I thought they might put out a press release that says Game Pass subscriptions jumped 15% through the first 3 days or something like that. But we haven't seen anything like that. So I do wonder if it's having an impact.
With it not being $1 anymore, maybe some people are just like, well, I'll just spend the extra money and buy the actual game.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially if you're new to Game Pass, there might still be the element of like, well, I don't know when they're going to, like Netflix, like people might be thinking of it like Netflix or like a streaming service where you don't ever know when someone's going to pull it down.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's like, well, I want to make sure I still have it. I do know a couple people who got it on Game Pass and just paid for the premium, like the $30 premium upgrade so they could play it early. Yeah, we talked about that on the show before. Kevin Rafa asked, how often did you think NASA Punk when you played the game? Many times. Yeah.
I mean, it is funny how they plant that in your brain.
Well, it's a dumb term, but it is an accurate one.
It is,
like, you see what they're going for.
Yeah. It's funny, though, how, like, marketing, promotion plants things in your mind, and then you recall them.
See, I don't think that's marketing. I think that's what they called it internally. I'm sure that was the vision
board. But then they mention it in their trailers. Like, they could have kept it to themselves.
Sure, but like that one developer who said it, you could tell that he was super into that term. Like, he was like, that was his watchword for the whole game. And I was like, yeah, I see it. I see what they're after.
Yeah, and the more you play the game, I think the more you see it.
Yeah.
So I thought of it all the time. I don't know about you guys. Did you guys find yourselves like seeing certain, like an outfit or a ship or just a little piece of art in the game?
All the ship design, it's the physical switches, it's the actual button. You know, it's the idea. You know,
instead of having a touch screen.
Yeah, our moderns. If we made starships in the next 100 years, they would be touchscreen AR things. You know, they would not be that. But like this is everyone's flicking switches and soldering things. And it's like, it's a more tangible, like
using old like mining equipment, and
it kind of the idea of it kind of works more or less. Yeah. It's an appealing aesthetic.
Yeah, I agree.
And you've got it's almost like Space Mountain.
A little bit.
Like it's got that sort of 70s.
It does, yeah.
Like 70s retro, like rocket tech thing.
But it still feels futuristic when you experience it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance. Like that's one of its advantages is it doesn't really look like anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, you see it. You know exactly what it is. Absolutely. So anyway, congratulations to Bethesda. Regardless of what Matt and I actually think about the game or you think about the game, mission accomplished, which was let's make a game that people will pay for, and that's what they've done. So far, so good on Starfield. Next up, in the midst of a lot of this Starfield promotion, people started asking Todd Howard about the Indiana Jones game, which was announced.
Completely forgot.
Which everybody had, because all we have is this little dinky teaser trailer that's like 15 seconds or whatever. They haven't really talked about it or released much information about it. And people started asking him about it. They're like, hey, what's going on? Matt, were you encouraged by what he said about it?
I don't really think any of what they're saying about this matters.
Really?
Like it's. I mean, he's like, oh, you'll be exploring. I'm like, sure, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, he said that when you play it, you'll feel like you're playing the movie.
Well, what was he supposed to say? When you play it, you're not going to feel like.
I don't know if is that the right approach to just make a game that feels like you're playing the movie. Or
I guess my response to that would be like, which movie?
Right. That's a good point. Which one? Because not all Indiana Jones films are created.
I feel like Last Crusade, awesome. If you're gonna make me feel like Temple of Doom, not so much.
Yeah, I hear.
Let's not talk about the other two.
Yeah.
But like, it's
to your point. It sounds like it's
way out. Yeah.
Way out.
Probably not Elder Scrolls 6 out.
Yeah.
But it's out there.
Machine Games is making that, right?
Yeah.
Who usually makes Wolfenstein.
Yeah. I mean, they're a good pick for that. I mean, you better be fighting Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, for that reason, they're great for it. But they also make first-person shooters. They haven't made a lot of third-person action games. So,
do we know that that's what this is?
We don't. Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Could be
Do you think maybe it could be a first-person?
I mean,
game?
it'd be kind of a shame to not be able to see Indiana Jones,
right?
But
then kind of like, what's the point of the license? But GoldenEye, obviously,
GoldenEye worked. Yeah.
So we'll see. But it's good to hear at least that Todd Howard had some idea about what's going on with the game. It sounds like it's way in early pre-production right now. So
I don't think it's probably not an early pre-production. I think it's well along, but they have nothing to talk about yet. And especially because I know this firsthand from working with Lucasfilm on things. Lucasfilm has veto power over what gets said when.
That's true.
So Todd can't say shit.
So do you think Indiana Jones is coming before Elder Scrolls 6?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because Machine Games is making it. It's not tying up.
I think we'll see that in 2025.
Yeah,
and I think we'll see Elder Scrolls in 2026 if we're lucky.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Next up, our old buddy Sean Layden. Remember him? He was like kind of a flash in the pan at PlayStation. For a while, he was the guy that went up.
Yeah, but who wasn't, right?
But it is funny. Like, they've had these leaders ever since Jack Tretton. They just kind of come and go, and they're there for a little while, and then they're gone. There was Sean Layden. There was Andrew House. And he I always liked Sean. Like, he was a guy that I felt like when I talked to him, I felt like he was being honest with me, which I won't say about a lot of the executives that I've worked with in this industry throughout the years. And I do feel like he has a heart for games, a lot like Iwata did. I just feel like he has a passion for it. And he came out this week, and he looks like a mountain man now, by the way. He, like, left PlayStation. He grew this huge beard. Like, he looks like Grizzly Adams. And I think anytime you see someone with a beard like that, you immediately think that now they're more thoughtful. But anyway, Sean Layden...
He learned wisdom on a mountain somewhere.
Exactly. Sean Layden was at some event, I think in Texas or whatever, where he was talking about the dangers, the impending dangers to the games industry, things that could hurt it or harm it. And he brought up big conglomerates like Amazon and Netflix. And he said that he felt like big companies like that getting into the industry could destroy it. I listened to his reasoning. I don't know that I totally agree, honestly. Like, his opinion was like, well, they have so much money and so much power that they can come in and just kind of force themselves around and
Except they can't, because Amazon tried to do that and it all came apart at the seams. Like, Amazon already tried to do that and they sucked.
Right.
They couldn't even get a game out the door barely, except that New World thing.
Right.
Like, and nobody really cared about that. Like,
well, Amazon
they had a huge division trying to make games and it all just fell apart.
Well, Amazon put out New World, which actually did pretty well, and also this game right here called Lost Ark. So it does, and this game also ended up being a hit. So Amazon, I think, is doing okay, and I don't feel like it's just like barged into the industry and like shoved its weight around by buying a bunch of stuff up or like.
No.
I mean, it could have been Embracer instead of Embracer. But it hasn't. It chose not to go that route.
Because it doesn't make any sense to do that.
Because Amazon understands business.
Yeah.
And apparently Embracer does not.
But Embracer was just buying shit up to inflate their value so they could sell themselves for $5 billion to Amazon or Apple or somebody, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And now they're left holding a number of bags. But we'll get to them.
Now, Netflix, to me, feels a little different. Because Netflix, some of its games, like the Stranger Things game, it makes sense. You know, it's their property. They want to promote it through games. I understand all that. But they've also, like, locked down some games and developers, like Oxenfree 2, where people played the first game. It was multi-platform. Oxenfree 2 is kind of this weird thing where you could go on Netflix and you could download it. And it's almost like it felt like it was kind of put in a silo or whatever. I don't know if Netflix will continue to do that with its games going forward, but that was one of the first ones that it really had under its control. And I was a little off-putting about how they handled it. If I feel like Oxenfree...
You can still play Oxenfree 2 on other platforms.
I think you can.
It's on PC. And, you know, it's not...
I just wonder if that was a harbinger of things to come from Netflix. If future games, it may put it in this walled garden inside Netflix. No?
Probably not.
I mean, it would be a dumb business decision, but I don't think that precludes it from happening.
No, it doesn't, but it's like most people don't even know that you can do that with Netflix.
Yeah.
So, you know, they'd have to actually, you know, have some kind of promotional like move to tell you that you can do that. That there are games on Netflix now, which nobody seems to really know.
Yeah,
they don't seem to be as into it as, you know,
Sean Layden
thinks they are. Yeah, it's like,
I agree.
Especially because like you can't force people to play stuff that they don't want to play.
Yeah.
Like you still have to deliver. You know, like and that's true of pretty much all media. Like it's very hard to get people to watch garbage, as Warner Brothers has learned over and over and over and over.
Yep.
Why the hell you push Flash that hard and don't promote Blue Beetle? I do not know.
Yeah.
But like, you know, people do not go back and see a movie they don't like over and over again.
Yeah.
And there's further proof. I mean, Barbie is a good example of like, oh, you make something good and serving an underserved demographic. And I mean, it's sad that the movie studios, the lesson they seem to have learned from that is make movies out of toys and not like make movies for women.
Right.
You know, like it's like and now we're getting a Lena Dunham Polly Pocket movie. How is that a real thing? Okay,
what's that? Pippi Longstockings next.
But like, you know, but then on the other hand, you got Oppenheimer, which is like. I'm sorry, Oppenheimer is 3 hours of people sitting in rooms talking to each other, and it made almost $1 billion.
Yeah.
You make a good movie that's interesting, that people identify with, and they will go see the fucking movie.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
Like, and games are the same way. Like you could definitely get an Oppenheimer. There have been Oppenheimer equivalents. Baldur's Gate 3, arguably, is that. That's a game that nobody would necessarily think in a marketing boardroom is going to blow up.
Right.
Like that. It's a fucking CRPG, mostly mouse-driven, dialogue-driven. Like all these, it's like turn-based combat. Like it's got everything on that is like something you wouldn't want to put in a pitch document.
Yeah.
Right.
And yet
here we are.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't just manufacture that. Amazon can't really buy their way into dominating the industry in any way that matters that wouldn't just end up with them holding the bag at the end of it like Embracer did. So, like, I hear what Sean is saying, but I just don't think that's in the cards.
I don't either. I don't think they're incentivized to do that.
No. There's no payoff there.
I think they also realize that...
Like, King of the Hill doesn't get you anything unless there's actually money at the top of the hill.
Right.
And there's no money at the top of that hill for just... muscling your way to the top. You're like, okay, now what? Now you still got to deliver. I
also feel like the audience for games, influencers and all the people around games, they're powerful. And I think people get that if there's an overwhelming sentiment around the industry, that we will vocalize it and we will amplify it and it will make a difference. And I think maybe these big conglomerates are a little bit reticent to stir the beehive, to stick the stick into the hornet's nest, so to speak. So, I think Sean's overreacting. I think he maybe needed some salient points for his presentation, and there was low-hanging fruit there, and I think that's where this came from. I'm not worried about Amazon or Netflix ruining the games industry at all. So we'll see how it plays out, but I think maybe he's jumping the gun there a little bit. Next up, speaking of major, huge conglomerates jumping into the games industry, Apple announced the iPhone 15 yesterday, and... my big takeaway from it, I'm interested to hear what yours is, if you even saw the news or whatever, but my big takeaway from it was the increased emphasis on gaming. That iPhone 15 Pro is like a PS4 and an iPhone. So Apple announced yesterday that 3 huge mainstream games that we play on our consoles will be playable on the iPhone 15. Now, it has come out since that they will run at 30 frames per second. But still, to me, this is pretty impressive. The first up is a game that hasn't even come out yet, and that's Assassin's Creed Mirage. It's going to be playable on the iPhone 15. Now, I will also say this about Mirage. It is not as hardware demanding as the last couple Assassin's Creed games. I don't think. It doesn't look as good as the last couple Assassin's Creed. It doesn't look bad, but I don't think it's as demanding on hardware as the last couple. Still...
I mean, it looks about on par with it, but I don't think the world is nearly... I think it's a much smaller
world, yeah. Thing. Also, by the way, previews came out for this over the last few days that were very encouraging. There was Polygon, I think, was the lone dissenter that was not overwhelmed and overwhelmingly pleased with it. All the other previews were like glowing about it, saying if you liked the first few Assassin's Creeds, this is for you, this is your jam. That sounded good to me. Anyway, non sequitur off of what we're talking about with Apple. And then there's also Resident Evil Village is going to be playable on the iPhone 15. Obviously, you know, not the most recent Resident Evil game, but this game's no slouch either. I mean, this game still, you know, puts modern consoles through their paces a little bit. Obviously, the RE engine is used for that. And then there's also the Resident Evil 4 remake, which is very recent and did push the PS5 and did push Xbox Series X. And it's coming to the iPhone 15. What does this say to you, Matt?
It says that someone at Apple
is
out of ideas.
Is out of ideas, really?
I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I cannot possibly express how much I don't care about this.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably do need a new phone soon enough because this thing's running out of batteries faster.
What do you have now?
It's a 12, I think.
12, I have an 11, I think.
I don't update my phone very often. I update my phone when it stops being able to hold a battery charge through a whole day.
I went from iPhone 5 to iPhone 10.
Yeah, this was the one I had before. This was an 8.
Yeah,
so about every 4
or 5 for me is, and so I'm just about due.
So I probably will get a 15, but I will never play a video game like this on it.
Yeah,
because why would I? Man, I don't even want to touch a fucking Steam Deck. Why would I want to play Resident Evil 4 on a 6-inch screen? Give me a fucking break.
Do you think this? And I didn't want to mention this earlier and kind of spoil this.
Sneaky asked about controls. You can sync a Bluetooth controller.
It's not that big a deal.
It's
look, I personally don't want to play games like this with touch controls, but you can. But to Matt's point, you can just sync a Bluetooth controller to it.
Controls are pretty much
it's kind of a moot
issue.
point at this point. Yeah. But anyway, back to what we were talking about with the next Nintendo console /handheld /whatever. This is a little bit encouraging, this news. that Nintendo may be able to have a decently powered platform and still make it a handheld.
Well, except that this phone costs like $1,500.
It does,
so
yeah.
it's
That's
not.
that's the other
it's
good
not
point.
a relevant thing to the Switch 2 at all.
Yeah. I guess the tech is there if you're willing and able to pay for it.
Yeah, if you're willing to pay
that much money,
almost 10 times what you would for the rest of
Yeah. Now, keeping in mind, there's a bunch of other stuff in the iPhone that the Switch 2 wouldn't need, and blah blah blah. But you're right. It would be like an $800 console or handheld or whatever it ends up being.
But I just cannot imagine wanting to play something as lengthy as Resident Evil 4 or Assassin's Creed on that.
Yeah. And again, unless it's propped up and you have a little Bluetooth controller.
But even then, it's like, just turn the fucking TV on.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
I mean, I'll say this. Like, flying, to me, is a good way to kind of observe what's going on with mobile gaming. And so when you go to the bathroom and you walk down the aisles, you can see all the people who are playing games who aren't. And it is pretty shocking how many people play mobile games. Like, my flight back, like, I'm guessing 35% of my flight was playing games on their phones. And most of them, like, the guy sitting next to me played games the whole time. He was in his, like, 60s or whatever. He was, like, Pactor's age or whatever. And he sat and played games on his phone the whole time. And they were the worst games. Just, like, endless runners where you're just swapping. But he just go from one to the next. Like, I saw a, like, 14-year-old girl who was sitting in front of me playing games. And it was crazy how she jumped between games. She would play one game for, like, 15 or 20 seconds. Flap, to the next one. Play the next one for 30 seconds. Flap, go to the next one. Like, she was playing, like, 4 games at once. I've never seen anything like that before.
But there are all those mobile games that you can only play for a certain amount of time. You're waiting for the bar to fill up.
You're right, or you have to watch the ad. But it was funny watching her swap through all the games so she could keep playing. And I've never seen anything like that. So it's good for me to get out and see stuff like that, to appreciate how other people are playing games outside of the bubble that we're in, which is the hardest of the hardcore gamers bubble. So, encouraging.
I mean, if I'm on a plane, I am more likely to pull out my phone and play stupid little games like that than to want to sit down and play something like Resident Evil 4.
That's true.
Because, A, I can play that in a vastly superior form about 3 different ways if I just wait till I get home.
Yeah.
And B, like, that's going to drain that phone battery like you wouldn't believe.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine.
I just don't. Care.
Chiar El Miguel says, it's good that with the Switch 2, Steam Deck, and now the new iPhone, we're getting more mainstream devices with a preset close to the Series S. It'll force devs to optimize even better for this group. That's true. Yeah, I hear you. So I think it's all to the good that we have a device that's this size and this thin that can play Resident Evil 4 Remake. That's just good. There's no other way to express it. That we're at the point where games look that good on a device that small. That's amazing.
It's a cool trick. It's kind of useless.
Spendy, yeah. But it'll be interesting to see when we're, 15 years from now, what we're getting out of these phones. Like, it's pretty crazy that we've got to this point this quickly. I think it was a pretty big jump for iPhone's graphics as far as games are concerned. With the iPhone 15. So just something to keep in mind. If you're like Matt and I, and you wait for like 4 or 5 iPhones to upgrade, you might also want to take a close look at the iPhone 15. There's a bunch of other stuff that's in there.
The other stuff it does is more interesting than playing Assassin's Creed, frankly. But.
Yep. So anyway, big news coming in iPhone land eventually. And when does the 15 come out? Is it like next week or something? Because usually they do the event and then like the next day it's available. So my guess is not too long from now.
It's usually a week or 2.
Yeah. So that should be out there soon. Next up, some good news for Nintendo fans, and I think some good news for Matt and I as well, because we are big fans of this franchise. There are rumors circling that a new F-Zero game is going to be announced. So earlier, when I talked about the Nintendo Direct that's happening tomorrow that was announced out of nowhere, this is what we were kind of hinting at. There have been rumors swirling for a few days that a new F-Zero is going to be announced, and then, as luck would have it, 2 days later, here comes the Shadow. It's going to be like a 40-minute Direct, all on Switch games, which makes you wonder, like, they just did one. What are they going to talk about? Maybe it's going to be F-Zero. Now, Matt, do you think it would be a new F-Zero game, or do you think it would be a remake or a remaster of what we're watching right now, which is F-Zero GX for the GameCube?
It's hard to say. My guess would be a new one, but the issue with that is you're never going to make a better game than this one.
Right. Can you make a better F-Zero?
I do not believe anyone will ever make a better F-Zero game than GX.
I agree. Like, I think if anybody tries, they're going to compare it to GX, and it's going to be compared unfavorably. Yeah.
Like, in my head, whatever this is going to be isn't even going to look this good.
Right.
Like,
graphically, you mean?
Sega just knocked this thing out of the park.
It really did.
In a way. I mean, I remember we both went to the reveal event for this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's ever been a reveal event that both of us were just blown away more by.
Yeah.
Like we both came out of it being like, what the fuck did we just
I know.
Like, it's basically this and Resident Evil 4 are the two reveal events I've been to that I just walked out with my jaw on the floor. Like,
I still have the shoulder bag that they gave us at that event, and I use it for my hockey gear bag.
Yeah, I still have that somewhere too. It was, but yeah, like I remember we both sat down on like opposite sides of the room and played for a while and came back together. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because that thing came out of nowhere. It's like all of a sudden it was like, oh, Sega's making F-Zero, and here's the GameCube version, and here's the arcade version. Have a play, and, and like that fucking Mute City music starts up, and you're just like, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like there was absolutely no reason to go this hard on this game, but they did.
They did.
I just do not see.
Was it
AM2
AM2 that made this? Is that right?
I think that's right.
Yeah. Do you think that they will nerf the campaign if they indeed do remake it or remaster it?
If anything, I would think they would beef it up.
You make it more difficult?
Oh, you mean? I thought you meant like add more content.
No, I mean like make it easier. That campaign is the hardest racing
this is
campaign
one of the hardest racing games I've ever
played
played in my life. Absolutely.
Like, playing this for review was a nightmare.
Oh, it was very rough.
Oh, it got so hard. Like, you have to be perfect.
I mean, you're doing really well right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's like third place is nothing to sneeze at in this game.
I mean, you had to play this game for hours to be able to finish in the top 3.
Oh, you had to know every curve.
Oh, yeah.
Of the track.
Exactly know every curve. Yeah. I think they will make it a little easier. And maybe they'll have like an OG mode or whatever where it's exactly like the old one. But I think by default, they'll make it a little easier. I don't think today's players are ready for F-Zero.
No, well, especially if it's a new game, especially they will not make it anything near this.
I tend to agree with you. I don't think they'll make a new game. I don't think that they think there's a market for a new game.
If they did, I think we would gotten more F-Zeros.
Yeah, I think they know it's cheaper and
this
easier.
didn't sell very well.
It really didn't, no, unfortunately.
Maybe because it was so fucking hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, most of the reviews concentrated on, like, it's almost impossible. Mm-hmm. And that could have scared some people off. Now, there is this certain segment...
And I think that would have been different in an era where there was more online play.
Probably.
Like, if you could race people online, that's different. But it wasn't that, but you still got first.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the easier tracks, too.
Yeah, but there are no easy tracks.
Well, there are easier ones. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's probably going to be a remake of F-Zero GX. I just don't think Nintendo will rationalize spending the money to build a brand new game.
It seems like a big commitment to do
the
a
risk,
whole new
and it's
game.
already so good. It's
and you've already got Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Like, you have your racing game.
Yeah.
And if you're going to put a lot of money towards a new racing game, you put it to Mario Kart 9.
Yeah. So anyway... The direct goes...
gotta be a launch title.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you'd think.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't have Zelda.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably will have a version of Zelda, but let's be honest.
Something. It'll be Tears of the Kingdom
It'll be Breath of the Wild DX or some shit.
That would be dazzling.
You're just never going to launch a system.
But you're right.
You're never going to launch a system without Breath of the Wild again. It's going to be their Skyrim.
But you're right. It's already up and running on the new system. Why not just put it out there and sell another 5 million of them or whatever?
Yeah, that's an easy $40, right?
Yeah. But anyway, the Nintendo Direct is tomorrow. It goes live at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. And this morning, I already curated it to sift it. It will be there, so you can watch it if you want to early in the morning if you're on the West Coast, or just after you had your cereal if you're on the East Coast. But we'll wait and see. 40 minutes, it can't be all F-Zero, so there's going to be some other stuff in there. It'll be interesting to see what Nintendo shows, because I feel like we kind of know already all the Switch stuff before Switch 2 comes out, but maybe not. Maybe they've slid in a couple other things here, so it'll be interesting to see. Next up, more Nintendo information. Also, by the way, the F-Zero information came from a leaker who also leaked Super Mario Bros. Wonder, just like a month and a half ago. So that information is pretty reliable. As we always say, take leaks with a grain of salt. More Nintendo information about Zelda DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. We were informed this week that there will be no DLC for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. How does that hit you, Matt?
Sure.
The DLC for Breath of the Wild, I didn't think was very good.
Well, it wasn't super...
It wasn't bad,
compelling,
but it wasn't great.
No.
So I can't say that I'm feel like I'm missing anything here. I think maybe the more concerning thing was when Enuma talked about it.
What would you do?
That's what he said, basically. In an interview with Famitsu, he basically said, like, I don't know what else to do with like Zelda in Link in this world. And it's this design.
And anything we do, you idiots are just going to build a giant ramp and ruin it. So who cares? Like,
so I'm not that disappointed about the fact that there won't be DLC for this game. I haven't even finished it still. So I mean, I still have more to play of this game. I think the bigger concern is like, what's next for Zelda? Period. Mm-hmm. The interview and translation sometimes
years of waiting. I think.
Yeah, well, of course, but translations will vary from Famitsu. Japanese interviews, like, they could have misconstrued what he was trying to say, but some of the verbiage sounded a little bit like, I'm ready to kind of pass the torch on to some of my underlings and let them start coming up with the ideas for new Zelda games.
Yeah,
I mean, Miyamoto eventually did it for Enuma, and now maybe it's time for Enuma to pass that torch as well.
I mean, he reinvented this thing to a degree that, like, yeah, maybe it's just time to rest.
Yeah. I mean, he's been through
How many more new ideas can you have?
He's worked on 2 games for the last, 15 years. Yeah. That's a grind, man.
Yeah.
I would suggest making the game shorter so you can get them out more often. Like, that's the first thing I would say.
Yeah, maybe alternate between these and, more traditional Zeldas.
Yeah, so we don't have to wait 7 years to play a new Zelda game. Like, I'm doing the math now, and I'm like, I'm going to get about another 2 Zelda games before I die, 2 or 3, if they stay on the schedule they're on. Mm. So I honestly found it a little encouraging that he's maybe willing to pass the torch a little bit to some of his underlings and get them more involved with the creative development of Zelda instead of just handling the actual heavy lifting of creating the games. But we'll see. I think some people maybe were a little disappointed. People who have already finished Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom 100%, maybe they were hoping to get a little bit more content. I can understand that perspective. But again, I haven't even finished the game yet still, so I still have a ways to go. I'm hoping I can get to it. My guess is I probably won't finish it until December, though, because from here on out, it's just nonstop. So I'm hoping I can finish it before the end of the year. My big hope is that I finish it before we do our Game of the Year stuff.
Yeah, I do not anticipate finishing this game.
I'm going to try. Anytime so many people feel something is so good, and I'm a little bit out of that opinion, I'm going to give it every chance I can to try to see what they're seeing.
I mean, I played this game for 80 hours. I'm content. I'm content with my opinion on it.
I hear that. I didn't play it that much. I only played
whatever
40...
stupid ass cutscenes I didn't get to see are not going to change my mind. I'm fine.
Yeah. So I see Vincent's asking if I have been playing more of Tears of the Kingdom. I have not. I've just been overloaded with all the games that are coming out. But again, I'm going to try to get to more of it and play more of it and try to finish it, honestly, before we start our Game of the Year discussion. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, no DLC coming for Tears of the Kingdom. I know that may upset some of you. And then we got more E3 news. More salt rubbed into the wound. Already, E3 2024 has been canceled.
Water wet, sky blue. Okay, no shit.
This really, and they parted ways. The ESA parted ways with ReedPop. Is that the name of the company that does PAX?
Yeah.
They parted ways with ReedPop. It seemed to me like the ESA was trying to blame ReedPop for all the problems with
give me a
E3.
break.
I know.
ReedPop wasn't around in 2019.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to fall for that one. But it does just look like E3 is over at this point. Not happening this year, not happening next. I mean, it's 2025. Does anyone care? Will I even care, Matt, in 2025? My guess is no. I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders for E3, and I can tell you right now that I think when we get to 2025, I will not care anymore. So it looks like it's over. Just one final nail in the coffin.
It's looked like it's over for about 4 years now.
This was kind of the last nail in the coffin, though. It's they had talked about reworking things for 2024, blah, 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 and now that's not happening.
Give me a break.
Yeah, I think it's over, people.
I mean, it's also over because the publishers are done with the ESA.
Yeah.
It's just, why would you even bother anymore?
I will say this. When we shot the last round of Pactor Factor, also right before I left for vacation, Pactor had been talking with the ESA. They actually kind of reached out to him and started talking to him about what he thought the problems were and things like that. And I will say, he told me not to say what they said to me, but I will say that there is a faint glimmer of light for E3 still. That's all I'm going to say.
Not with them.
They think with them there is.
Well, they are wrong.
Yeah. Pactor was kind of lukewarm on it. He's like, I think maybe it could work what they're coming up with, but he wasn't overwhelmingly convinced either, so probably not. And thus I say E3 is probably dead. So we're not getting any DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. However, we are getting DLC for a game that we were not supposed to get DLC for, and that is Final Fantasy 16. Today...
I'm also curious what you would do for this.
Yeah.
Just add regions? Or...
I guess. Just start something completely anew?
Yeah, like just like, oh, Clive's got to go to this island nation and
there's stuff going on
got to do a
there.
thing there, I guess. Like,
I don't know. And if you finish this game, you can see why Square Enix was like, no, we're not doing DLC for it. It's wrapped up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
But I think
you feel like you've seen the whole world.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Yeah. And some news broke today. Well, it didn't even really break. People made the observation that Square Enix's value has dropped $2 billion since Final Fantasy 16 launched.
Wow.
Its stock price has lost enough that it is devalued $2 billion. And Square Enix responded to the press and said, we had counted on... They're trying not to blame it on Final Fantasy 16. What they're saying is that they had counted on Final Fantasy 16 sales making up for the poor sales of Forspoken and Marvel's Avengers. And that has not happened.
No.
Like, Final Fantasy 16 has done okay on its own.
Square needs to stop pinning their hopes to make up for their failures on individual games that are going to do fine, but not gangbusters. Like, it goes all the way back to that thing where how they expected Tomb Raider to sell more than Tomb Raider had ever sold before by a factor of like 2.5. You know, it's like that's just not how the world works. It's not
realistic.
Works.
Yep. And then Vincent brings up Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, which is a mobile Final Fantasy VII spin-off. Square Enix typically does much better, like usually with those PC and mobile.
I will say this though, like the advertising for that game, I have no idea what that is.
Yeah,
like it's doing a very poor job of explaining what that is.
I think if you're a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII, there are some dog whistles in that marketing, though. But...
yeah, there's some, but like. It's not communicating what the game is very well. So it's like unless you're, I mean, obviously there's probably enough Final Fantasy VII fans that they will just like automatically
just
jump
latch
to it.
onto it.
But at the same time, it's like it's not like Final Fantasy VII fans haven't been burned by bad side content before. You know, like they learned their lesson on some things. So I don't know. Like,
Square Enix is in trouble, I think, is what we're getting at, though. Like it is.
They're
wobbly.
in a very weird place.
Yeah,
they've been ripe for purchase for a while now.
Never more ripe than right now.
They're definitely on the edge.
That would be a smart purchase by PlayStation, but I don't know. We'll see. I love Final Fantasy 16, so it's really disappointing to see Square Enix in this state after releasing the game.
I mean, 16 was I thought was very good, and like I think it's selling fine. Yeah, but it's not like selling. It's not Final Fantasy VII selling.
Yeah,
so
it sold 3 million in its first couple weeks.
Also, it's on one platform.
Yeah,
what'd you expect?
It's
actually doing really well for a single platform game that's not made by Sony.
Not even just that. If it was only for PS4, where you have 140 million install base, that's okay. But releasing it exclusively for a platform that's only a couple years old, that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, you've limited the audience tremendously on that. What's
become obvious is that Square Enix did not get a big enough money hat from PlayStation to make up for the lost sales. That is what has become apparent. And that will scare off other third-party developers and publishers from signing exclusivity deals, seeing how Square Enix, it did not work out for that Japanese publisher. So lots of little threads here. They're kind of dangling off of that blanket around what's going on at Square Enix right now. But all I can say is Final Fantasy 16 is an awesome game. And if you haven't bought it yet, you should go out and buy it. And if you love Square Enix, you should definitely go out and buy it because they need the money. What else we got here?
Or you could just let the mega corporation to his own devices.
Right,
because
and just watch
it's not our job.
Fair enough. But I would argue Final Fantasy 16 is worth the money.
No, I
I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm pushing people in a direction.
At the same time, here's an 80-hour RPG right before all this other shit comes out is a hard sell.
It is a hard sell.
Like, it came out at a good time, too.
Yeah, it did.
It just limiting it to the PS5 was a mistake.
It is starting to get discounted a little bit, too, here and there. So keep an eye on that. You may be able to find it for $40 or $50 here over the next month or so.
Hopefully the PC version comes out before Square Enix folds like a flan in a cupboard.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Because I'd like to try that. I'd like to play that on PC and see what it looked like.
Yep. Speaking of another company that's doing poorly, we've already talked about Embracer earlier in housekeeping. Further signs that Embracer is in deep trouble. It shut down Volition this week. Volition has been around for forever. I have been to that studio personally 3 or 4 times throughout my career. because it's always made the Saints Row games. They always did events where you go to the studio.
They made one of the best space games of all time.
Yeah.
Free Space 2 is maybe still unbeaten.
Yep. Its last game will prove to be the Saints Row reboot from 2022, which is what you're seeing right now.
Which, look, man, like I know everybody, it sucks that they got shut down and like tons of people like got laid off from this and like it's terrible. At the same time, I remain and will always remain shocked that they didn't shut down after Agents of Mayhem.
Yep.
Like,
how did they survive?
I never thought we would ever see another Saints Row game after that. Like, I thought that was a matter of time. And Embracer, for all their failings and all their bad decisions, they did end up, in the end, keeping Volition alive long enough to try Saints Row one more time. And it didn't work out.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, I am stunned we even got that much.
Yeah. I also feel like Embracer could have, if they had good people, if they were working with the consulting agency, they would have known that this game was not.
There was definitely a
going
different path you could have gone. Like they pulled this way. I mean, they tried to kowtow, I think, too much to the people who are very loud, but I think a very small contingent that just constantly say that Saints Row 2 is the pinnacle of the series, and it's not.
Yeah,
the pinnacle of the series is Saints Row 4.
Yeah,
I know Saints Row 3 is a favorite, but I replaying the remaster of that. Saints Row 3 is just a bunch of mini games. Like, it's actually kind of terrible.
Yeah.
Like, there's no real progression in that. Saints Row 4 is the pinnacle of what they were trying to do, because it went as crazy as they wanted to go. It did something no open world game was doing, which is basically a superhero game. Like, nothing else was like that, and it embraced what was weird about that series. And this still had some weird stuff in it, but it just didn't go far enough, and it wasn't technically sound enough. And the scope felt very small in comparison, and it just didn't quite gel. And as a huge Saints Row fan, it was definitely a disappointment to me.
Embracer's comments after it shuttered Volition, and I would argue Volition has never in its entire history made a truly great game.
Free Space 2 is a truly great game.
I've never played that game, honestly.
Free Space 2 is amazing.
Okay.
There is, of that Wing Commander X-Wing area, that is the best one anyone ever made. Okay. And I don't think anyone will ever make anything better.
I've never played a truly great Volition game. I guess I'll rephrase that. And the comments coming from Embracer after it killed the studio, it basically said, look, we have the Lord of the Rings license. We spent a metric ton of money to get the Lord of the Rings license. Why have we allowed all these studios that we have to work on these projects that we know will never sell as well as a really great Lord of the Rings game? And so it appears what Embracer is about to do is find its best studios of all the studios it's acquired and put them all on Lord of the Rings games. They already have, I think, 5 games in development based on the IP. I don't know if that's the right choice, Matt.
I think they are vastly overestimating the appeal of Lord of the Rings IP.
Did they not look at what happened with Amazon's Lord of the Rings show? Yeah. It did okay, but it wasn't gangbusters.
No, and what do you do?
I don't know. It's the same story over and over again. There's new generations coming along that don't know the story. I get that, but if you're trying to sell it to people like us, I don't need to play another Lord of the Rings game.
I mean, Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War figured out a new angle, which worked.
They did. You're right. They found new angles, and that's the key.
Gollum showed that you can definitely fumble that ball pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't know what's left to do. I guess you could do. The Lord of the Rings, the main Lord of the Rings story, start to finish, on the level of something the budget and quality of something like Starfield or Skyrim or Final Fantasy 16, and do the whole Lord of the Rings story, because no one's ever really done that in video games. People have tried.
Yeah.
There've been, there's a piecemeal fighting, piecemeal hack and slash games that were great from Stormfront when the movies came out. What was that? The other company that had the book license, because that was back in the book license was
separate. There was the 2 separate licenses.
And they made the Fellowship of the Ring game, which was awful and included Tom Bombadil. Yeah. And there was a whole musical section, which there's just a point where you just felt like you were losing your mind playing this game. So I theoretically you could do something. I mean, it would have to be Witcher 3 quality good.
Elden Ring quality.
Yeah,
Witcher 3,
way up there. And I don't know how
where the IP doesn't matter.
Right. And I don't know how you make something look, a lot of that story is just walking.
Yeah, it really
I don't know what you do But it's like, but in the end, you know they're going to try to make like basically like remember Lord of the Rings Conquest, like Battlefield with Lord of the Rings, which that was terrible. I remember being horribly disappointed. I'm like, that sounded like it should have been a winner,
right?
And then you played it for like 10 minutes, you're like, this is bad.
No, this is not going to work.
Very bad. Yeah. I guess you could do like a Muso game, with like thousands and thousands of orcs.
They're gonna have to figure it out because they have 5 in development already, and they're gonna make more.
But I can't think of anything that would like sell million,
based on the IP alone, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Strategy game.
They're gonna have to make a great game that would be a great game no matter what license is on it or whether it has a license or not. Like it's just got to be this game that just is amazing and we love it regardless of whether it's based on Lord of the Rings or not.
I'd rather have remasters of those old Stormfront games.
Yeah,
because those are very hard to
find. Yeah, they're worth a lot of money.
They don't run very well. Or talk to EA and bring back some of that shit. Like the Battle for Middle Earth games are worth hundreds of dollars now. Like it's because they're not available digitally, they're not anywhere. But like Battle for Middle Earth 2 is really good.
Yep,
it's probably better than anything Embracer could make.
Yeah. So anyway, you know what? For once, Matt, I have taps here, and we're gonna play it for Volition.
Also, why wouldn't you want Volition on that game?
Would you really want to pay Volition to work on another game?
Sure.
Really?
Like they're pretty. They when they have the time and the money, they're pretty good at stuff.
I don't know. I think they made the right decision cutting bait with Volition. I hate to say it, but
I don't think so. I think especially if you take away the burden of coming up with their own idea. Like if you stop letting them come. I mean, someone should have stopped them after Get Out of Hell. Like Agents of Mayhem should never have occurred.
Yeah.
That game is mind-boggling that exists. Like it's so weird. And I played that game more than I like to admit because there's moments where I'm like, I understand why you think this was a good idea. Like I can see why it was conceptually a cool idea. Like, okay, we went through a bunch of alternate universes and Gat Out of Hell, and this was one of the weirdest ones. So we're gonna make a whole game out of that alternate universe. Like Marvel has made a pretty good business model out of that. But the problem was like, if you're gonna do a game that's almost 100% shooter, you should probably make sure your shooting gameplay works right.
Yep.
And it's never quite worked right.
No, I agree.
Has it?
Yeah.
So and now, of course, in the wake of Starfield, I would have put them on Free Space 3.
Right.
But, like, it's too late now.
Yeah.
But then again, that was 20 years ago. The people who made Free Space 2 are almost certainly not at the company anymore. So
yeah. I don't want you to think I'm making light of a bunch of people losing their jobs. Like,
no.
Total respect to the people who worked at Volition. I hope all of them end up, landing on their feet and finding new gigs and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, to me, the writing was on the wall with that studio for quite a while. So, RIP Volition, and we'll see what Embracer does. I feel like Embracer's kind of teetering on the brink here.
Embracer's left holding a number of bags, and that's all gonna come.
They were trying to get the Saudis to bail them out, and even the Saudis who throw around money like it's candy were like, no, we're good.
These people thought Jared Kushner was worth $2 billion, and they won't give you money. You're in trouble. You're in trouble.
Touche. Next up, got some bad news this week as well. PlayStation Plus. Sony just decided to just
weird.
Jack up the prices for PlayStation Plus to like astronomical levels.
Well, the cost of bits has really gone up in the last 6 months.
Dude, they jacked up the base price of PlayStation Plus, the lowest tier so you can play games online, to $80 a year. They jacked the price up $20. The higher tiers, they jacked up the price even further.
At least Nintendo gives you an N64 for that.
Right. Do you think this is going to work out?
I mean, for one thing, I don't think a lot of people realize it yet because it happens so fast.
I got
and quiet.
an email saying that, like, hey, if you have this set up for auto pay, next time it's going up a lot.
But barely. Like, I mean, look, man, I delete anything that says PlayStation Plus on it when it comes to the inbox most of the time because it's just spam usually.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't until I saw like people talking about it on Twitter that I was like, oh wait, what? Like, they raised it how much?
It's insane.
Like, that's crazy.
I feel like there's a lot.
What? Like,
I know.
Like,
they didn't give you anything new. They didn't give you anything new.
It's ridiculous.
It's insane. Like, at least.
And why? Like, what happened?
I don't know. I can't figure it out.
How is this not a state of play?
I don't.
You got some splaining to do, Lucy.
Seriously, yeah. I don't. This is crazy to me. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people who have been PlayStation Plus subscribers for a long time, and maybe play online games once every couple months. They're just like, oh, it's just more inconvenient to cancel it. And I think they'll cancel now.
Yeah, that $80 beyond. Yeah, that's definitely beyond the threshold of like, oh, why not?
Yeah, if you're not playing Call of Duty every day or every other day or whatever, you don't have like a main game that you're playing all the time, Rocket League or whatever. Why would you have PlayStation Plus? It does still give you like a couple free games a month, but I mean, they just covered all that with $20 extra a month. You just paid for all the games they've been giving away. Are those games worth $20 to you that you get every month? They're not to me. I play online. This is my job. I'm going to have to subscribe to PlayStation Plus. But I really feel like the extra money they're going to make off the people who continue to subscribe will not offset the loss of $60 for every person who bails. I think this was a dumb decision, and it flies in the face of convention. Like, PlayStation Plus has been around for how long? It had gone up $10 the entire time.
And like, what happened that your costs would have gone up?
There's no explanation of why.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. El Guapo says, PlayStation Plus going up in price is honestly a normal practice considering how Microsoft is hemorrhaging money. First of all, I don't know what you're talking about Microsoft hemorrhaging money. But second of all, of course, everything goes up over time. Where no one's saying like it should never go up. People are saying a jump of $20 a year at once is crazy. Like even
with
Netflix,
no explanation.
Netflix takes you out to dinner before it F's you. Like this is just like we're just gonna F you with no dinner at all. Like your plate's bare. Like
it's just weird that like there was no, hey, we're gonna raise it, we're gonna get this and this and this.
We're gonna give you this.
Yeah.
There's nothing. They're just like, all of a sudden, we decided that our service is worth more than you've been paying for the last 15 years or whatever. Like, I think it's crazy what PlayStation has done. And ultimately, you know, the proof will be in the pudding, whether people bail or keep subscribing. I don't know. To me, someone who's worked in the industry for a good many years, this seems nuts. And out of step with how things typically work. Not just in the games industry, but look at Netflix. Like, it it increases its price almost every year, but it's like $2, $3, not $20. I don't know. To me...
Yeah, you got to creep your way up to that.
Yeah. El Guapo is saying that he thinks that Game Pass is not making money. I mean, you're assuming that. Nobody knows that. I don't know that. Pachter doesn't know that. Nobody knows that because Microsoft keeps that information private, which would lead you to believe that maybe it's not doing as well as you.
Yeah, if they were doing well, you'd think they'd be bragging about it.
Right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're hemorrhaging money from Game Pass either, which is...
And you know what? Even if they are... Who cares? It's Microsoft.
It's Microsoft.
They can do that.
Yeah, it can hemorrhage money
Sony
for
cannot.
eternity.
Right. But if that's a problem, for like, what is Sony doing that all of a sudden that they required a 30% bump?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. And
like,
again, the other tiers went up even more.
It's not like they've suddenly added a bunch of things to compete with Game Pass.
Yeah.
That, you know, like PlayStation Now has been there for years. Like, what's happening?
I would love to see how many people subscribe at those higher tiers, where you get like PlayStation Now and the game streaming. I feel like nobody subscribes at those tiers. Maybe, or do any of you? If anyone in our chat right now subscribes at those higher tiers, let us know, and let us know if you think if it was worth the old cost, and whether you think the new cost is going to be worth it. Because I'm really curious. Like, to me, those higher tiers hold no value for me whatsoever as a core gamer, because I'm playing a lot of those games. So I don't know. I think it's a misstep by PlayStation. And maybe it's done the math, and it's like we're headed to doom if we keep charging this amount for PlayStation Plus. I don't know. It just seems really weird.
I mean, the test is going to come, like, I don't know. I assume that there's a point in the October-November area where all the Call of Duty Bros subscriptions come due. Yeah. Because that's probably about when they would have signed up to play the new Call of Duty back in the day. Yep. And that's when the auto-renew happens every year. So what's going to happen when all those guys see that price has gone up that much all of a sudden? Or is anyone going to make a different decision?
They'll pay it.
Yeah, this is the only thing they do.
Yeah, that's the only game they play. For a lot of those people, they don't play anything else.
So, I mean, the timing, I guess, would fit with like that. Like, I'd imagine most PlayStation like Plus subscriptions were started in the fall.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is that a lot of people who only play one game, they only play Fortnite, they only play Rocket League or whatever. Like, those people are okay paying extra money. They're like, I don't mind paying $20 for Lara Croft in Call of Duty because it's the only thing I play. So if I add up the money I spent on games in a year, I spent the $70 to buy the base Call of Duty. I spent $30 on DLC, and I spend now the $80 to play it online. So every year you're spending, what, $250 on games versus somebody like us who spends way more than that playing a bunch of different games and also subscribing with PlayStation Plus. So I don't think the Call of Duty bros are going to bail on it. I think it's more the people who play a bunch of different genres who are like, you know what? When was the last time I played an online game? That was 4 months ago. What free games have I got over the last 4 months? Oh, I haven't played any of those either? See ya. Those are the people I think that'll leave. But it'll be interesting to see. There's no going back now. Like, nobody ever increases the price and then says, oh, he screwed up. We're dropping the price back down to $60 now. That's not going to happen. So regardless of how it works out financially, PlayStation is going to end up sticking to its guns on this. But to me, it's just so out of step for the market. Nobody does this. No one increases the price of a service like that much in 1 year. So we'll see how people react. Yet another Embracer story. This one with maybe a better ending. We'll see how it goes. But again, Embracer is in deep financial trouble. And in addition to shutting down Volition, it was also leaked out this week that Embracer is shopping around Gearbox. Now, nobody knows exactly what Embracer paid for Gearbox because Gearbox was bundled into, I think it was a $1.4 billion deal that included 3 studios. So it's hard to figure out what it spent for Gearbox versus the other 2 studios.
Well, it was enough for Randy to be able to afford to buy the Magic Castle.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my guess is that probably $500 million they spent
Something
on
like that.
Gearbox.
So the question I've seen is whether or not that included Borderlands. Because there's a point at which Gearbox sold the Borderlands rights. And I don't know if Embracer owns Borderlands. I think 2K has Borderlands.
Maybe.
Right?
I think you may be right. Yep.
Because that happened
That's
before.
a lot of value.
Yeah. Because other than that, if you get rid of Borderlands, why are you buying Gearbox?
Right. Well, they also put out Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. That was in-house by Gearbox.
Right, but that's still Borderlands.
Right. Is it? Is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands Borderlands?
Those characters are the same.
They're the same character. I mean, Tiny
world.
Tina is in Borderlands.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if the IP includes all the characters.
They literally talk about the characters in Borderlands all the time in that game, including the what's-his-name who died.
They do. Yeah, you're right. Just talking about them, you're right, is probably a stretch too far.
2K owns Borderlands as far as I know.
Yeah.
And
so what value is there in
They
Gearbox?
did Tiny Tina as well.
Because Gearbox is starting to publish games independently.
Right.
So there's some value there, but if you're Embracer, is there value? No. That's probably why they're getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Like a publishing house is not useful to Embracer at this point.
Who buys
But
Gearbox?
I don't understand why you buy Gearbox in the first place if you're not getting Borderlands.
I agree. What value is there in Gearbox other than the people working
if you're really into Brothers in Arms, I guess.
Right.
But like,
I forgot about that.
doesn't UB own that anyway?
Yes,
because that was under contract to them.
It does. Yeah, UB owns it.
So what does Gearbox have?
Just the talent, the people working there. But they can leave. As we've seen with Rare and other studios that were acquired, the brain drain.
And I would think that most places would be happy to have them.
Yeah. Yep. So
whether you like or don't like Borderlands, you got to admit they do good work.
Yeah. They make high quality games for sure. So I don't know what's going to happen with Gearbox. I have a feeling Embracer might just end up having to keep it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe it'll dissolve Gearbox as well.
Like as a company, I don't know what the value of Gearbox would be beyond the people that work there.
Or Gearbox starts
making... Which is not nothing, but that's not a permanent thing you're buying. Or
Gearbox starts making Lord of the Rings games.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, that probably is the ultimate...
That would probably be... But it's like, if they clearly not, because they're trying to sell them.
Right. Yeah. So, I don't know what the future of Gearbox looks like. It is kind of crazy. One thing Sean Layden did say about the big corporations moving into the games industry is that it's resulting in a lot of consolidation and studio closures. And that part I agree with. Mm-hmm. I mean, Embracer is a massive corporation. And what is happening? We're seeing studio closures or studios being moved into other studios where they can work on Lord of the Rings games. So,
but I think you'd also be seeing studio closures even if that wasn't happening.
Probably.
Because they would just kind of fade away.
Yeah, because they just make games that don't sell. Or they make IP that's not popular.
A lot of those companies are one underperforming game away from shuttering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And then our final piece of housekeeping for today's episode to show you that we're equal opportunity critics here on GameFace. We're also going to slag Microsoft a little bit because we finally got today the games that are going to be available to people who used to be Xbox Live Gold subscribers. That died today, by the way. I could play taps again. I'll spare you and I won't. But Xbox Live Gold died today. Today's either its last day or yesterday was its last day. And its replacement is something called Xbox Game Pass Core, where you get X number of games every month if you subscribe at that tier that you can play. And they announced the first 36 games today. I'm going to bring that up right now so you can see them. And I'll be honest, Matt, as somebody who plays a lot of games, like you and I, and like everybody watching GameFace live on Twitch right now, and everybody watching the archive of GameFace, I don't think there's a whole lot there for us.
Is this a retro collection or what?
This is it. This is what you get in replacement for the 2 or 3 free games that they used to give you. You get this selection of games to play for free. I looked across this. I think I found 9 games that I haven't played extensively. And like of those 9, I had 7 of them I had played, just not like played a bunch of.
I have not played Descenders or much of Gang Beasts or Golf with Your Friends.
Some games you just don't want to play.
No, I don't care about Human Fall Flat. Payday can go fuck itself.
And the Abrams says Vampire Survivors is there. What more do you need?
Yeah,
more than that for the money that I'm paying.
I will say I have played a lot of Vampire Survivors in the last year.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, what are you paying for this? You're paying $8-9 a month when you break it down, roughly.
You can get that game for about that much anyway.
Yeah.
Power Wash Simulator and Vampire Survivors are the 2 winners in this lineup.
Right, but they're on Game Pass. Yeah. And if you have Game Pass Core, you have Game Pass. So I don't know. I don't see a whole lot of extra value in this for me. Now, if you're a casual player, maybe, but will a casual player subscribe? I don't know. It seems underwhelming.
They better hope so.
I like the old way better, I guess is what I'm getting at. Although, even though the games they were giving you for the last 2 years
I didn't even know they were
trash,
still doing that for the last 6 years or something.
The last couple years of games were trash. So, but I feel like they were setting us up to say this right now. Like, the whole thing was like, we're going to give them trash for 2 years. That way, when we launch this new thing, they'll sit and look at the list of games and be like, that's not so bad. I feel like we've reached that moment right now, Matt Kyle.
I don't... Who cares?
I feel like I've been manipulated.
This is just alongside the basic subscription to be able to play online. Right?
Yeah. Whatever. Right, because Core is basically you pay to play online, is what Core is, yeah. So anyway...
I mean, at least it's something.
It's better than nothing, I guess.
What Sony gave
But that's where we're at now. You're right, though. PlayStation increased the price and didn't give us anything new, so maybe we should count our blessings on this.
At least we got a bunch of games we already played years ago. That. I don't know. Whatever. You're buying being able to play online.
Yeah.
That's it. Nothing else really matters.
Yeah.
There. That's all bells and whistles. That's all bonus. Who cares?
Yeah, and I do wonder, again, what we're talking about with PlayStation Plus, if the casuals who are like, wait, I haven't played a game online for 3 months because I didn't like Halo Infinite very much or whatever, then they bail. I don't know. I think you're trying to use these games to keep those people from bailing. The people who don't play online all that much.
I don't think you're even doing that much. It's just to be able to say you're giving someone something for the money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even think that hard about it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm getting all those games. Look at that. It's like they don't even think about the fact that they probably played them all already.
To me, $8 or $9 a month is a lot to pay to play online. Just to play online.
Well, I mean, you've still never quite had the explanation of why it doesn't cost anything to play online on PC.
Or it never did on Nintendo platforms until recently.
And the real answer is that because, Xbox established that you could do that.
Right.
Why wouldn't you?
Right. Yeah. You don't have to. Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Yeah.
And people can talk about it's like, oh, the servers, and Sony has to pay for the servers. Microsoft, really? Do they? Because most games, the developers run the servers.
Right.
That's why when the developers shut the servers down, you can't play the fucking game anymore.
Yeah.
Not because Microsoft shut the servers down. So what are we paying for?
Yeah. No,
but it's too late now.
It is.
That genie's out of the bottle for the last 15 years or so.
Yep, that ship has long past sailed. So there you go.
We're just lucky Steam hasn't figured out a way to charge for it.
Yeah.
Believe me, I'm sure they thought about it.
Yeah. A lot of housekeeping for today's episode. And by the way, all that news was from the last week. I didn't even go back the week before. It was a busy week of news in the games industry. And not really a busy week of releases, oddly enough. Everything kind of worked out perfectly, actually.
Well, I mean, everybody got away from Starfield. So.
Yeah, everybody just got out of the way. So anyway, we're about ready to kick off GameFace 357 proper and finally talk about Starfield here on GameFace. But first, here's a word from our awesome sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass. and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. Ellis Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. So I don't know if you guys remember, but a few months ago, I went home to go to a memorial for one of my friends who had died. And when I was there, I went over to a buddy's house, and I took a bottle of Ellis Cream with me over to my buddy's house. And I mixed up a couple drinks there, and I was like, hey, we're sponsored by this. It's really good. You should try it. Didn't think anything of it. And then when I was just home, I went over there for to watch a football game or something to the same house at my buddy's house. And I went in there, and I just assumed that I'd be able to mix up a drink with Ellis Cream. And I go into his kitchen and his bar, and I'm like, hey, where's that liqueur that I bought and I brought over here the last time I was here? And he's like, oh, we drank that. And these guys drink. I'm just going to tell you, they drink. And they had fallen in love with Ellis Cream and had finished off the bottle, which I thought was awesome, which was a testament to the power of Ellis Cream. So head to creamls.com/sifted. As I always say, awesome drink recipes there, but you don't even need the recipes. You can make awesome drinks with it, even if you're just freestyling, which is what my buddies did. They're like, once we discovered what it was, we started finding interesting ways to use it, and they loved it. So I can't think of anybody that I have turned on to Ellis Cream that has not loved it, and that is probably the best testament you can give to a liquor. So once again, go to creamls.com/sifted. Try to remember to use that URL so they can track people who are going there based upon our marketing plan. And you will not be disappointed. It's a great website, and it's a great liqueur. And with that, it's time to kick off GameFace 357 proper, and we're going to finally...
Hour and 20 in.
Yeah, now that was the longest housekeeping I think we've ever had. There's a lot of news this week. And we're going to talk about Starfield, finally. Now, hopefully most of you guys have watched my pre-vow, which is basically a review without scores. I had played it around 40 hours at that point. So you kind of know how I feel about it. But we don't know how Matt feels about it. And I'll be honest with you, Matt's opinion on Bethesda's RPGs, I don't know if you're going to find a more informed opinion on Bethesda's RPGs than Matt. Matt, how many times have you finished Skyrim?
4.
Exactly. I
only intended to do it once, but I get sucked into that game every time they re-release it, and I load it up to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm like, 80 hours later, I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Yep. So I have been waiting with bated breath to discuss Starfield with Matt.
I played that several times. I played Morrowind twice. I have played Fallout 3. I replayed vanilla on Xbox, no mods, 2 years during the pandemic, during the lockdown. I played that on the Xbox One, backwards compatible, and still liked it.
Yeah.
Fallout 4 is the only one that I don't love.
You really do not like Fallout 4.
And I've tried to play Fallout 4 twice. I didn't finish it when I first played it, when it came out. And then 2 years later, I went back on PC and tried to play it again with mods and messing with it, and I got about the same distance in. But total, I have played that game about 80 hours. So my least favorite Bethesda game, I played only 80 hours. So that should tell you something. I mean, and I really just consider it mediocre more than anything else. It also leaned too far into the collect junk and build stuff and
the whole
an irritating
base
construction.
And everything.
I don't care about that.
Which honestly was kind of frivolous.
Which is just back here. It's in here again.
Yeah,
but
they do build on their systems. They tend to.
Yeah, but the good news is you don't really have to do any of it.
Yeah, you don't. You really don't at all. Yeah.
Which is also part of the bad news. But also, here we are.
Let's try to keep it structured. I want to try to keep things organized. So let's start by talking about the story. Obviously, any RPG, story integral to keep you playing, keep you going. I would argue the story in this might be its weakest element. I mean, the setup is great and cool, but I just struggled to find people that I cared about.
Well, the story is pretty good. The story is kind of an Arthur C. Clarke sort of childhood's end monolith sort of thing, and that hangs together pretty well. My problem with it is not the main story, and actually, I would say a lot of the faction quest lines are more interesting, which is pretty typical in Bethesda's RPG. Like whoever writes the Dark Brotherhood stuff in the Elder Scrolls games is clearly on fire more often than the main quest people.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, so that's cool. The problem is that your companions are terrible.
They really are.
I don't like any of them except Sam.
The cowboy.
Okay. The cowboy guy is okay. It's funny. I saw the guy who voices him, like, was reposting like angry takes about how bad he is in the game, and like one of them was like, it's like, fuck whoever told him to like barely talk about a whisper and sound like a gay cowboy, and he says he's like, this is the greatest feedback I've ever gotten, and like, so, but I do like, as a character,
welcome to the games industry.
As a character, I do like Sam. I would like to throw his child out an airlock.
Yeah. Why is she there? Sympathy or something? Like,
because he just, he's a single parent and there's nothing, nowhere else to put her. So she comes on the starship that might get blown up at any given time. It's like, I mean, you do.
Timmy is saying no love for Space Karen.
Oh no, Sarah's
also, by the way, people,
Sarah's okay, but she kept getting mad at me every time I even slightly did something shady, and I'm like, lady, do you know what game you're in? Like, this is a Bethesda RPG. I'm going to be stealing every single thing that isn't nailed down. That's how we roll. Come on. So I got rid of her very quickly.
By the way, people, I know a lot of you guys have played this already, so if you have something to contribute to the conversation that you would like us to see or reference, make sure you go at Sifted Games in the chat so that we can see it. I'll see it out of my peripheral vision, and I'll be sure to check it out. Just something to note before we get going here.
But like most of these people, I don't have a lot of affinity for. They're fine.
They're doing nothing. Like, the one guy is like, I've been studying religious artifacts for the last 3 millennia. It's like, I don't care.
The
dude with like the pilot
or whatever.
Yeah.
All the religious people wear the little like pilot hat thing. I'm just like, oh my. I will say this.
NASA punk.
One of the things I thought was weird is, or disappointing from a kind of aspirational future thing, is how religious so many people are in this weird future time. And also, like, there's a point where I hate the kid. Like, but at one point she's like, you'll walk into the ship and it's just like, I bought a bigger ship at one point purely to hope that she would be in other parts of the ship, so when I walked through to get to the cockpit, she wouldn't trigger her fucking skyscraper joke for the 4,000th time. But like, at one point I walk in, she's like, you're always upgrading the ship. It's like Christmas every day. I'm like, why do you know what Christmas is?
Yeah, exactly.
There are no churches. There are no crosses. No one has mentioned Christianity or any of the major religions. We talk about this weird one where everybody wears the skull caps, and like there's a bunch of like Klingon weirdos out in somewhere that no one's ever, House of Vatlu or whatever the hell they're there. But like, no one has mentioned anything about, why do you know what Christmas is?
Yeah.
Like,
video games do that all the time, though. They use like euphemisms and catchphrases from modern society that don't make any sense within the context of the game.
Yeah, every once in a while, but like in fantasy worlds, it's weirder. But this one, I'm like, what? No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And it's not like a big deal. It's not but it's like how in The Last Jedi, which is my favorite Star Wars movie. I'm not slagging The Last Jedi here, but when Laura Dern says Godspeed, Rebels, I'm like, that shouldn't be a thing in Star Wars.
No, you're right. Yeah.
She should not say Godspeed, and later on, Oscar Isaac should not say big ass.
Yeah.
No one should say big ass in Star Wars. I don't know why that's the rule for me, but it's true.
Now, Matt, I said in my eval for this that this game is more Star Trek than Star Wars. Do you agree with that?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say so. And also the companion thing, like, I was trying to figure out at one point, because like, very quickly they start to bond with you, especially because there's a fairly midpoint-ish of the storyline. There's a point where you basically have to choose between two characters one dying or not. Like a Mass Effect, like where like when somebody's not going to live, and the way the game chooses that is by the two characters you have the highest affinity with.
Yep.
And so there's a point where you can tell they're speed running the affinity thing with you early on, because you're like, we got to finish this up to get their quest done, because one of them's going to die.
Right.
So you got to get this done in a hurry. And it was a little obvious to me what was happening. But the problem was, like, they start doing the thing where they start eventually turning. It's like, hey, can we also, like, the thing where, like, when you hit an affinity point and like you can talk to them about the next step of their companion quest thing.
Yep.
Like, there were times when it was like, it's like, hey, when you get some time, I'd like to I'd like to talk for a little bit. I'm just like, every time you enter a new room, every time you go through a load screen. At one point, I was in a dogfight in space, and Sam walked up behind me and said, "Hey, when you get a chance, I got some things I'd like to talk about. And I'm like, we are in a dogfight against 5 other starships, one of which is 4 levels higher than me. Sit the fuck down, dude. Like, it was just like, can you people shut up for 5 fucking minutes?
Man. They
and there's a whole thing where there'll
there's
be
not enough vocal
suddenly they'll
samples
turn
either.
you and be like, it's like, I just want to say I really appreciate you taking me along. It's been everything in my life is really. I'm like, dude, you guys are creepy.
They are.
Y'all are like getting real intimate, real fast. Like I thought the Baldur's Gate 3 characters were weird because they were so horny, which turned out to be a bug. I was right. That was not normal.
Yep.
But these guys are like, oh, you're trying to like emotionally bond with me, and I barely, like, I just met you, and also I don't particularly like you, and like, it's very, and you all have these dead eyes that I don't want to look at direct because they're looking right at you because it's a first person game, and like I kept thinking like, why do I don't like these guys, but I do like I would kill someone to go hang out with Garrus Vicarian for a day from Mass Effect. Like the companions in Mass Effect I love. Yeah. And part of it's just because Mass Effect is, no one does that better than Mass Effect. No one's ever done companions in an RPG better than Mass Effect. But part of it, I think, is that when the scenes happen between Shepard and those characters, Shepard is a character.
Right.
Like, Shepard is a little divorced from me. I'm making decisions for Shepard, but Shepard is their own person.
Yeah. They reference him.
And I recognize that they have this relationship between these two characters that is different from the relationship I have with these characters. Yeah. But that's not here in the Bethesda model. In the Bethesda model, they're just talking to me. They're just talking directly to you, and it doesn't work for me. It just makes me feel... I agree. I feel I shouldn't feel social pressure from my RPG, but I'm like, I don't feel the same way about you, and I'm not going to pick flirt for any of you people. I'm sorry. Like, it's a weird thing, and it's awkward, and like it makes me wish I'd taken that trait, which gives me like bonuses for not having anyone on the ship.
Yeah. How do you feel about the fact that there's really, for a huge chunk of the game, not a clear, like, antagonist, like, bad guy?
Oh, I'm fine with that. Yeah? I love stories with no antagonist. Yeah. Like, without a villain.
It's a little strange. For a video game, particularly. But, like... I feel like it resulted in, like, no set-piece moments in the game. Like, there's no epic, like, boss fights and the things that you would have if there was if there was a primary antagonist and you had henchmen and all this stuff, like...
Right, but here's the thing. I mean, there is an antagonist eventually. Right. Yeah. And there is
But it takes a long time.
It takes a while. I mean, you could get there in, like, 10 hours if you beeline it.
Yeah. I guess maybe that's how some people played it. This is one of those games where I did not beeline, though. And some of it was out of necessity.
But also, like, I like I like stories with no clear villain. I like stories where, like, like, I love Hayao Miyazaki movies. I love My Neighbor Totoro because there is no villain in that movie. Yeah. It's just life. And there is an element of this where it's just like, the Constellation's, reason for existing is exploration, finding out what's out there, digging up, and that's good enough for me in this setting. And then it gets more complicated and some stuff happens and it turns out that of course there's more happening than that. Yeah. But like early on, that's all I need. Really. It definitely gets weirder later on.
Yeah, for sure.
Which also resulted in them throwing a new skill tree menu at me around 80 hours into the game, which you don't get every day.
That's for sure.
But and I love, I do, like you said about it being Star Trek. I do think it's got more in common with Star Trek than probably any other major like space franchise. But I will say, like, it runs the gamut. Like, like New Atlantis is Star Trek. That's Starfleet. Like that city is basically Star Trek.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas like Aquila City, the Western city, that's Star Wars.
It is, yeah.
A little bit of Firefly, but it's it's Star Wars. It's the gunslinger Western sort of like frontier thing that Star Wars has going on, the rough and tumble cantina stuff. Yeah. And then you've got like Neon, which is cyberpunk, which all the cyberpunk corporate shit. Yeah. And then you've got Sidonia, which is the mining town on Mars, which is basically Total Recall and like kind of all the down and dirty, like, or the Expanse. There's a little bit of the Expanse to that one too. It's like capitalism has crushed these people into the ground, literally, to the point that they have to, like, every 5 seconds someone sets off a charge explosion under the ground with a warning on an intercom, and that's just what people's lives are. Like, and they do a really good job of like whatever kind of brand of science fiction or space fantasy you like, there's an element of that in here somewhere for you. You can find it somewhere. You can join the Rangers, you can join the Space Marines, you can join the Space
like
Pirates.
You join and you really join.
Oh,
like, those quest lines are deep.
Oh, and in classic Bethesda style, no one gives a shit if you are a pirate and a ranger. at
Right.
the same time.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
early on, you're like, oh, is this going to be like, it's going to be a problem that I'm doing Crimson Fleet stuff, but I'm also a free? No. None whatsoever. Never any consequence for that whatsoever. Like,
Yeah.
And some people are like, oh, I wish it would lock you out of something. I was like, no, because it's a 100+ hour game, and I don't want to play it again just to see what the fucking space pirate missions look like.
I found myself gravitating to the side missions more in this than most RPGs that I play.
The side missions are this is some of the best side missions Bethesda's ever done. And some of them, like, I will say this, Bethesda's always had a little bit of a problem with, like, adequately rewarding you for things you do and loot and stuff. They're still not perfect, but some of those side missions, even ones that are not faction related, they give you really good shit.
Yeah,
like early on,
one
of those quests,
guns especially,
really good guns. There was one that I did that I was like, I just picked it up off a note on a space pirate, and at the end of it, I got like legendary armor and a really good ship. It's like, wow, like that was. I feel really good about this. Like,
yeah,
they've definitely improved that.
AJ has a couple questions. First, he says that the load times in the game almost ruin the game for him. Ruin the game maybe a little extreme, but certainly really annoying and seem out of place in a game in 2023.
So I will say this, on my PC, there's never been a load time more than 4 seconds long.
Oh,
because
well,
it's on
your
an
beast
SSD.
of a PC.
It's on the
The load times on Xbox Series X are
it's
long.
there. I've played it. So I've played this game 120 hours. About 75% of that was on PC, about 25% on Xbox. Basically, when I was sick and wanted to lay on the couch, I would go play, thank you, Xbox Anywhere, because I just go play the same save over on my Xbox.
Yeah.
And when I was playing it on the Xbox, I will say, because
we're seeing load times right now, actually.
Yeah, I know we've seen performance issues on my computer. The thing runs everything on ultra 4K 60 frames a second butter.
Yeah.
Like, every once in a while you get a little stutter when it autosaves, but like that just seems to be what autosaves do in video games.
Yeah.
When then I switched to the Xbox, I'm like, oh my god, it's like 25, and like the cities are a mess, really, frame rate wise. But I got used to it in like 5 minutes. You know, it was not an issue.
Aquila City, when you first
Aquila City's rough, and the load time.
Run to the main door, and it's just like a slideshow.
And the load times are longer. Like here's my thing with this. Like, this ties in with the load times. I will say this. I think a lot of the load time stuff is to keep it functional for consoles. Because remember, one of the big mods in Skyrim, modern Skyrim, starting with the CE, really, the special edition, really, but certainly with the anniversary edition, is the Open Cities mod.
Yeah.
Which makes it so the cities don't load in. You just open the door and walk into the city. There's no load times. Because all that stuff can happen in Bethesda games. They break it up with load times, I think, to make it bite-sized chunks enough for the consoles to handle it in the time they're released. I am very sure that we will see mods quickly that will let you skip a lot of those load times.
Really?
Yeah.
You think so?
100%.
Except not for Xbox.
Eventually.
You think?
Not for S.
Yeah.
But I think, it'll make it more unstable, but, like, you can do it.
Yeah.
I think that's possible. The other problem with the thing with the load times is the nature of how the space travel works means it's just going to be load times done under cutscenes.
Yeah.
Because that's my biggest caveat with this game, as much as I like it, is that the space travel is incidental.
Yeah. It's like, why does it even exist, really?
It exists because it has to be there.
I guess.
For this premise. You have to be able to do that. But
I would be okay if I could just fast travel from one planet to another and just ignore space.
But you can. That's what you do all the time.
You're right, actually, you do, yeah.
Once you've been a place, you never have to fly there again.
Well, depending, as long as you're not in a battle, there's some conditions that'll stop you from doing it. But
I all the time, if it's two places I've already been, outside of cities that scan you for contraband, if there's if I'm going directly to some other planet, I'm on the planet I just finished scanning or whatever, I will just pull out, go to the other planet, load in, pick the landing site, hit land, and usually I just load in right there.
Yeah, the fast travel options in this are incredible.
Yeah, but
thank God though.
But
they need to be
right. But the fast travel also removes the entire reason for existing of the space.
No,
idea.
you're right.
Like,
it does.
There's nothing to do in space. That's the. I'm like, look, sure, it's space. Would I prefer to like sit and wait 45 minutes like in Star Citizen, where you have to wait real time to like
fly
get
to another planet?
No, that's not what I think. But you could do more. Like, basically, the only things to do in space are to pick up loot that you find and get in fights.
Yeah.
and there's nothing else.
Yeah, and the fights don't happen enough. There aren't enough people at least close to your level to fight out in space. Like,
well, that's the other thing is like I've never found the levels to matter that much.
Really?
It's more about what level ship you're not level ship, but what kind of ship you're flying.
And if you how much you've
and how much because the levels don't give you anything. It's just a skill point. So wherever you put that skill point kind of determines what matters.
How do you like how the skill points are set up so that you have to unlock certain things? You have to achieve certain things before you can actually apply the skill point to it.
I think that's a pretty good way to balance the system between like discrete leveling versus kind of the Elder Scrolls style of use the skill to level it up thing.
Yeah.
I do think in the end I prefer having a tangible goal.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're like out of your way. It's like, okay, what does that mean?
A lot of times they just happen just organically.
Sometimes they happen organically. Sometimes,
play.
especially with the skill, like the modification stuff, sometimes it's like, okay, what does that mean? Like there's one of this what is it? I can't remember which one it is. I think it's the special projects one or something. But it's like, oh no, it's a starship engineering. Starship design. Design is what it is. The thing you get where you can use better modules when you're customizing the ships. The upgrade task is to install X number of unique modules. There is nothing called a unique module in the Starship customization. It's actually this one particular menu that's called something else. I can't even remember what it is. And you just have to install 10 of those.
No.
But like, they aren't called unique. There's nothing calling them unique to the whole fucking thing. Like, it's like, how am I supposed to, there's no way to know that.
I wasn't even exposed to that, and it just shows you how you can kind of play it the way that you want to. Like, I never even came across that because I wasn't interested in that part of the trees or whatever.
Well, neither was I until I got the C-class giant. I have this giant freighter that I got from another quest. Like, they gave me
a freighter.
It holds 5,000 kilograms. And it's basically invulnerable. It is I went up to C-class piloting, level 4 piloting specifically so I could fly it. And it is kind of a boat, but I have never seen. I've been in fights against 5 or 6 other like enemies. I have never seen the shields on this thing drop below 30%. Like it is, and like the guns are very slow, but it's like half your shields are gone. All your shields are gone.
One more shot, you're
ballistics.
dead.
Oh, you're gone already. Oh, you're dead already. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a flying fortress.
I will say this.
But the one thing is, I want
ships,
more.
You feel the upgrade.
Oh yeah,
sure.
I want more power in it though, because you have to do all the X-wing style.
Yeah.
Like this thing only puts out like 24 slots of power, and I would like 30. You know, like more like that to power everything as much as I can. First off, I couldn't find the reactor in the ship. I'm like, where is it? It's buried in the ship somewhere. And then I can't get a better reactor because the C-class reactors that I can buy are all worse than the low-level B-class reactors I had in my previous ship, so it's putting less power out. And to get the higher ones, I have to be higher in Starship design. But to do Starship design, I have to add these frivolous things. I literally stole some pirate ships so I could just slap these extra modules on them and not ruin my current ships.
Yeah.
Like,
one thing we should add right now, though, is that you don't really have to do any of that if you don't want to.
None of that is necessary. You can use standard ships. You can either buy or get or earn through quests or steal from people.
That's what I've been most impressed with, is that you can play it however you want, but 2, it's totally feasible to play it however you want. It doesn't. I didn't feel like it made it any more difficult or less difficult.
No, and like you can muddle your way through the stuff you're not skilled in. It doesn't really matter. Like, and I specialized in rifles. Like my only combat skills are in laser and. I have the laser and ballistic damage ones, and then I have rifles.
Wow.
I use laser.
I never would have guessed that would be your path, man.
That's how in Fallout as well. It's
really?
always like rifles. I have one scoped that I can hit from a distance, usually silenced, and then I have one that's just like a semi-auto close-up weapon.
AJ's also asking us, did we play it in first or third person?
First. It's a first-person game.
We both played it all in first person.
I tried third person, but it's probably the best implementation of third person they've ever attempted.
Yeah.
However, it's still just a first-person game with a character model slapped on it. Because look, you're still just aiming with the cursor in the center of the screen. Mm-hmm. The direction your character's facing doesn't matter. So it's not true third person. It doesn't feel right. Like she's facing the container I want to open, but she can't open the container until I put my dot over the container, which is. You just play in first person. It's a first person game.
Veritas, he feels that there's a ton to do in space. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
To me, space was just pointless.
There are 3 things you can do in space. You can fight, you can dock with something, and you can land on a planet.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, I've docked with space stations and stuff, and I've fought dogfights, impromptu dogfights, where people just come out of the ether. They're like, hey, you're going to give us your stuff or we're going to blow you out of the sky.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I've ever done in space. I will say this. I contacted Bethesda, and I asked them if I could fly to other planets, if I would eventually make it. And they were like, yep, but it's literally going to take you like 24 hours of real-time flying to get there. They're like, just fast travel.
Yeah, just do that. Alana Pierce actually did that. She flew from, I think, Earth to Pluto.
Really?
And it took her 7 hours. And when she got there, Pluto was just a flat image, and she flew through it.
It was just a sprite.
Yeah, it was just a sprite in the distance, and she just flew through it. She did get there.
Wow. Yeah, he said it's there. Like, you can actually fly it if you want to, but like,
but she had to actually still go to the map and pick it and load it in as a planet.
Right.
So it's not
My point
really...
is that Bethesda was basically telling me in a roundabout way, there's nothing to do.
Well, yeah, because it's space. Like, but there's stuff you could do locally in space.
Right.
You know, and I know, I get, if you blow asteroids up, there'll be like pieces you can pick up with, here's 4 iron. Great. Who cares? It's just, there's not much there. There's
compelling.
there.
There's nothing compelling to do in space. Like, some of the space stations are kind of cool. You invade them.
Yeah, and when you jump into places, sometimes you'll run into like random characters who fly in, like grandma and like things like that. But I also, like, I've started getting repeats of that all the time.
Yeah,
now.
me too.
And like, it's okay, like, great. Like, I just tell grandma to go away now.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I've been there, and you don't really refresh the fucking food, so it's not like I got more to pick up. So yeah, other than like hoping for some kind of RNG encounter, there's not really a reason to fly anywhere because I just fast travel, and like it's just the same 5 grab jump animations, the same 5 landing animations. Yeah, it's like, and it's like, okay, great. And every time you jump in, one of your companions is just like, it's like, oh, I never get tired of that. I'm like, really? Because I was tired of it around jump 20. Like, and I love space stuff. I'm a big space person, and it's not particularly interesting because like there's nothing to do, and like, and it's not any really different from like something like No Man's Sky, where it's like, okay, in No Man's Sky, sure, I hold the button to take off and go through the atmosphere, but what's really the difference? Nothing. There's nothing to do. I do kind of wish you could skim the planet like No Man's Sky style.
Yeah, fly along the planet instead of having to choose a different landing point.
Yeah, I wish there was a little more of that, but I imagine you're taxing the engine to a degree that it was never meant to be.
Yeah. When we were talking before I left, and I had already been playing the game for a long time, I was, I'm under embargo, and I can't even talk to Matt. I mean, that's the crazy part. I just really can't. I was still trying to,
I didn't want to hear about it anyway.
Yeah. There was still a couple of moments where I was trying to use my eyes to, like, tell you, like, about the planet travel. Mm-hmm. About how you couldn't fly across the planet like you can in No Man's Sky, and
I mean, I knew you couldn't do that.
Yeah, I didn't. I was surprised.
They were pretty clear about that.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
It's just
Liberal
whatever.
Hack asks, good question. He says, does upgrading the ship matter though if there's nothing to do in space? Not really.
I mean, the only thing that matters in that is distance of jump. Like I mean, the current ship I have can jump some ridiculous distance. Like I can jump halfway across the galaxy.
Yeah, if you haven't played it, like you can fast travel between planets, but when you start going between like galaxies, your ship only has so much jump that it can do.
There's only one galaxy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, what are you jumping between at that point?
You jump between star systems. But like, and you can't fast travel until you've been there,
right?
Obviously, so like you still got to get there. And some of the outer star systems are pretty far jump. Like your starting ship cannot jump further than I think about
2 star systems, 3.
Well, it depends on the distance, and that's hard to figure out early on because it's a 3D distance, and sometimes you're like, that's clearly not that far. But like,
is this the point where we talk about how terrible the interface is?
Yeah, I mean,
I think we can both agree that's the worst part of the game.
I don't understand how anyone thought this inventory menu was acceptable.
Again, call the Duck Consulting Agency. They could have fixed it for you, Todd.
I cannot tell you how many times. It's like okay, so you open the inventory, and then you can hit LB to switch to the Starship inventory, and then if you're selling something, you can hit LB to switch between. I cannot tell you how many times I've accidentally bought stuff from a vendor because I thought I was in my inventory selling it to him, or accidentally sold stuff off my Starship because I thought I'd gone back to my own inventory. And like, just make them different colors.
Yeah,
just put them on different sides of the fucking screen. Like, this is a solved problem in your other games.
I know, it's crazy.
What the fuck are you doing?
I know. It's really weird.
So fucking stupid.
It's so crazy. It's like, did anybody play this? Were your QA people afraid to tell you like there were things wrong with the game?
Like, you figured out a way to do a fast travel system that goes 3 layers deep on the fucking star map, and you can't figure out where I put my goddamn sandwich. What the hell? And they never explain it. And there's never this thing like, did you know that you can actually store stuff in the ship storage from like outside the ship?
I didn't know that.
If you're a certain distance away from it. Do you know what distance that is?
No.
No, neither do I, because they never fucking tell you. I have no fucking idea how far away you have to be, but you can sometimes if you're there. I don't know.
It's a mess. I think that'll be the first thing that they fix when they actually spend time fixing stuff. I think. I hope.
It shreds my mind how bad the inventory system is in this.
It really is crazy.
Unbelievable. I mean, their menus have never been great, but like, what? What?
Yeah. Japanese dude is asking how the exploration is on planets. It's limited. So you land and you're kind of cordoned off to like a very specific area that they want you to adventure in. You can't just run in one direction forever.
Oh, you can though. I mean, I've hit the border once in 120 hours, and that was because I was running from those fucking terramorphs the whole time.
I didn't really try. Once I figured out how the game was designed, I just stopped trying.
Well, it's more space than you will ever need.
Yeah.
Wait, so I actually did look into this because I was curious, because I didn't run to the end because I have a life, but like, so your character runs about 1 kilometer a minute, and the test that people did before, 10 minutes of running, of sprinting, gets you to the border. If you just pick a direction from your ship, you just keep going. So it's about 10 kilometers.
That's a lot.
So every time you land, the game generates a 400 square kilometer area to run around. That's bigger than the city of Philadelphia. Right. That's plenty.
Yeah.
That's bigger than most open world games are, period.
I think what most people would say, though, is that there's a kind of like space. There's nothing in those areas to do other than the very specific thing that they want you to go to.
Some of it. I mean, you can scan all the flora and fauna and all that, which, of course, I have done about 100. I mean, I'm not kidding. I got my achievement for landing on 100 planets like 3 days ago.
Yeah. How do you like the scanning? How you have to like scan something like 8 times before you actually get the full scan of it?
Well,
like
you gotta learn stuff.
Yeah.
Different
I gave up on scanning after a while. I just kind of stopped.
Well, the other thing is scanning is incredibly lucrative and huge XP.
Yeah,
like I leveled up a lot.
I was surprised, actually.
And you go back to Vladimir, who unfortunately is the best character in all of Constellation and the one guy who won't come with you on missions.
You're right, yeah.
But you can sell planetary survey data for anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000 credits per thing. The only limitation is how much money he has.
Yeah.
So that's been a very lucrative thing. I've found some pretty cool monsters and planets.
I think the creatures are better than the ones in No Man's Sky.
Yeah,
they're more believable.
They're more handcrafted.
Yeah,
they're not as weird, but like they do, and they're more similar to each other.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a lot of like interaction between the ecological niches. Mm-hmm. You can very easily, the scans tell you, but also you can tell who the hunters are. Like I have a bunch of screenshots I took from this one planet where they're basically these giant brontosauruses with glowing brains and cages on tops of their heads, and they were being there were giant herds of them. They were being hunted by packs of mantises.
Wow.
Like these big mantises, and the mantises would come around the sides and come in and attack them and take them all down, and then they'd all run in different directions, and that would live. Other mantises would come in and kill. It was really cool. And then there were these flying enemies, or not, they were creatures, but they'd come down and like eat the dead ones that the mantises didn't.
There's an ecosystem.
There are ecosystems happening there. I took a bunch of pictures of that. That was cool. And then there was one place I went, because there's usually a herding, like, kind of prey animal.
Yeah.
One planet I was on had the herd prey animal was a defensive natured horned, like a giant rhino thing, like 20 feet tall.
Yeah.
And it was just killing everything. Like the little like panther creatures would come and they'd just kill them all, and then they'd panic because they were defensive and everybody'd attack. So they just run around killing, like they were basically murdering every other animal on the planet because they were so afraid of everything and so defensive. But they were so big and dangerous that they
couldn't help but kill things.
They were like hippos. They were just like running over everything. It was, so there's a lot of stuff like that was. There's never. Anyway, I love No Man's Sky. You know that. I played literally 1,000 hours of No Man's Sky. I have never seen anything like that.
No, you're right.
Sky.
Yeah. This game is more handcrafted and more curated than No Man's Sky.
And it's I will say, like,
but it still has spontaneity to it, though, which I was pleasantly surprised by, kind of the emergent stuff that just happened in this game, which makes the things like the interface all the more puzzling.
Yeah.
Because there's so much attention to detail paid in some of the other parts of the game that you're just like, what is this? Like, how did you screw this up so badly?
Yeah. And some of it, I'm sure, is just because there's different groups and different teams working on different parts of the game. But, like, it's like there's like on Sidonia, the Total Recall mining town on Mars. There's a sign that says however many days since the last incident.
Yeah.
And if you start some shit and kill somebody, it will reset it to 0 because that was an incident, which is great.
Stuff like that all over.
But contrast that with the fact that when you do a grab jump, your character's hands just randomly move over the console and don't actually press anything specific. And it differs between which cockpit you're in. So, like, when I first played in the starting ship, she just the last button she pressed was some kind of, like, diagnostic button. And then on one other cockpit, she was just tapping a blank panel. And on my current ship, apparently the grab jump button is also the speaker button on the intercom panel. And I'm like, all this time, all this work, all this shit, and you didn't bother to make the grab jump thing that we're going to have to watch how 1,000 times actually match up to some controls on something. It's so weird.
It's weird. It's how hit or miss that stuff is. But when the cool stuff happens, you're like, whoa. Like, because it kind of catches you off guard because it wasn't there for other parts of the game.
But it's like so much stuff where it's like, okay, like you have all this animation of her, all the different cockpits is a different animation of her getting in the seat, and the seat rolls up and she pulls the controls to her. Like, it's clearly a big deal. You're supposed to look at all these controls. All the panels and screens on these ships are all like, you can read all the readouts, you can see all the graphs going up and down. Like, it's so meticulously down to the fucking
until
the character does the one time the character presses. When you're flying the ship, you can see the controls are working properly. Like, you can see what you're doing reflected. Why isn't the grab jump thing an actual?
They didn't go the extra
There's
mile
only
there.
So many cockpits in the game. You just need that animation for each cockpit. Why isn't that there?
It only seems like there's a handful of different cockpits. Like,
I think there's probably a dozen or so.
You think there's that many?
Looking through the modules, there's a good number, but a lot of them are variations of the same kind.
Even if there's a dozen, like, you should be able to do that.
That should be doable. I mean, you did 1,000 planets, you could do 12 animations. And look, that's nitpicking, sure, but like, you're inviting nitpicking by having it be this detailed, and then all of a sudden having this weird cut corner.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is.
AJ's asking about Outposts. He says, have you invested much in it? He's not. And he's wondering if he should be. I mean, I don't think you have to do it.
No, I made one. Outposts are the worst explained thing in the game.
Yeah.
I made one outpost because early on I got a mission board mission to deliver a certain amount of argon to New Atlantica, or New Atlantis, or whatever the hell the name of that city is.
New Atlantis.
And I had to figure out how cargo links worked, because the way you have to start an outpost, put extractors on the argon thing, build a whole a resource bin to put those in, figure out that you got to hit the right trigger to connect them to that, and then you got to build a cargo link, which is a giant starship landing pad with that you can feed the argon into a pad there, and then the ship will come down and pick it up and take it someplace else, usually to your other outposts with cargo links that you've linked them up for. I don't really understand why you'd want to do that, because it just seems like you're shuttling your resources around for no reason. But you can go to the cargo link and also link it to the cities that need those resources, so that's what you do. The problem was I couldn't find the cargo link to build, and I couldn't figure it out. I was like, oh, maybe I need to learn the recipe for it, or maybe I don't have the skill for that. Maybe I need to put a point in outpost skill. Turns out it's just in miscellaneous. It's buried in the miscellaneous, which is also like, you can build like trees and benches and shit there. And I'm like, one of the most important economic tools in the game is buried in the miscellaneous menu. So I built that, and I have never touched the outpost thing ever again. The only other thing, and I haven't done this because I didn't want to break the game before we talked about it. I might now.
You might now.
But I'm thinking, maybe I haven't really looked online for most stuff. A couple times I've looked stuff up because I'm just like, how the fuck do you find the cargo link? That's how I found the cargo link, was I looked up where it is, and it showed me where it was. But I'm guessing, so when you craft stuff, you get XP for it. Yeah. And there's some stuff that's real cheap to craft, like the adaptive frame, which is a basic construction thing. It's like 1 nickel and 1 iron. So I'm thinking, if you find If you find a planet that has nickel and iron, and you can find a place where you can build an outpost where there's nickel and iron in that outpost, and you put resource extractors there and just like build a bunch of holders and let it fill up, and then just take all that, because you can access all the resources when you're in the outpost, and just build like hundreds of adaptive frames, you should be getting like thousands of XP a minute.
Right, yeah.
So I think you could just break the level system by doing that.
Oh, interesting.
And if you could get more complex with it, you could build more complex stuff with other elements. Like that might be what the cargo link could be used for. You could cargo link all the different elements you need to build, like the better, higher level construction stuff that gets you more XP per build.
Yep.
Shuttle it all back to one main outpost and just build hundreds of these things and make tens of thousands of XP.
Yeah, you level up so much more
fast,
quickly.
like building because you can build things like 99 at a time.
Yeah.
So like theoretically, you could do that, and like that solves your fucking encumbrance problem because you just level everything up.
I'm glad you brought that up. Let's talk about encumbrance because it literally drove me bonkers.
I don't know why Bethesda is so in love with that.
Nobody does it anymore for a reason.
No one likes it.
Nobody likes it.
And this is too low. It's too low in this game.
It drove me bonkers.
You should be able to carry at least 50 extra kilograms than you can in this game.
It's just a constant struggle throughout the entire game to have enough.
And for what?
Why?
For why?
Why?
Like, why?
I don't understand.
Why are you making me do this? What is the point?
I feel like it's them just being like, we're going to stick to our guns and you're going to deal with it. Like, I don't know why else.
Well, it's kind of like the whole Bethesda, like you'll never be able to respec in a game.
Right.
They'll never let you respec these things because it's like, okay,
it's one of those things where they just stand their ground on it, but it's like nobody does this anymore for a reason.
No.
Nobody likes it.
And I haven't actually, done the console command to take it off or use the mod to undo it yet. I've tried to play it honest.
Yeah.
But early on, one of the first things and I feel like I wasted time leveling up my fucking like carry weight and. One of my biggest things with getting upgraded ships was something that could carry more fucking cargo.
Yep.
Like that was, I spent 300,000 credits on a 3,000 cargo ship, so I didn't have to worry about where I was going to put my fucking aluminum anymore. It
drove so many of my decisions. Yeah, I hated
ridiculous.
It really is ridiculous.
It's like, what's fun about that?
There's nothing fun about it. Nothing is fun about it. I don't get it.
And sure, don't let me carry like 4,000.
Okay. If you don't want to be ridiculous, sure, but it's not ridiculous. Like.
No.
Also, finding ammo in this game, I was constantly out of ammo for my weapons in this, like always searching for ammo in the middle of a firefight, running out of ammo.
No.
I don't know. There were some annoyances.
I never ran out of ammo, but like...
Really?
No.
Wow.
I did very intentionally use... My three main weapons I would switch between are all different ammo, for one thing.
Oh, that helps.
So I used like a laser one and a 7.77 and a 50 cal.
I ran out of ammo all the time.
But it got to a point where eventually when you're doing... Because one of the things you can also do when you're on the planets is you just go to random like little buildings you find. So I've seen a lot of dumb takes on this game, and a lot of it is just like Sony people trying to like
Sony ponies,
tear it down.
Yeah, fanboys.
But the dumbest take I've seen on this game was from someone who was like a giant fanboy of it, and they were loved it, and they were talking about like, I can't believe the variety in this game. Every time I land on a planet, I find new things, and I haven't seen the same structure. I've gone all these different structures. I've never seen the same structure twice. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I have cleared the same fucking abandoned mining outpost 14 times at this point. To the point that the same corpses are on the same stairwells in this thing. Are you kidding? Like, I think there's only one layout for each type of building you find.
Did he play the game?
I don't know. I'm like,
I feel like he didn't
did you
play
just get lucky and only find different buildings every time? Because every single type of building is the same.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell.
Yeah, I saw duplicate buildings constantly.
Unless it's like a specific quest-related thing that you're supposed to find and go into, and it's like a little dungeon, which are usually marked with an exclamation point. But like... No, they're the same fucking thing. It's all the same thing.
There's some copy and paste for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Most games have it, though.
But doing that, like, you pick up a bunch of interesting stuff, and the loot is actually pretty decent. And most of my money came from either selling planet data and from selling weapons.
Yeah.
Like, those guys drop some amazing weapons.
Money, yeah.
And like that. Yeah. And so every time I'd go in, I would sell weapons until the vendor ran out of money, and then I'd spend enough money to buy them out of the ammo I used. And then I would sell more weapons to get my money back that I just spent on the ammo. And
that's funny.
After like two of those rounds, both of my main guns had 2,000 plus ammo, and I never got even close to running out after that.
Yeah. Let's talk about bugs, because that is something that everyone was very concerned about before this game launched.
Oh yeah, this is the cleanest Bethesda launch in history.
Easily.
By
many magnitudes.
By light years.
Yeah, by light years.
Stay thematic on it.
I literally found one bug the whole time, like one bad one, like a tooltip popped up that wouldn't go away. And I will say this, I had to restart my Xbox before it went away.
Wow.
Like, I closed out the game and all that and went back, and it still popped up. Once I shut down my Xbox and restarted it, it was gone. But that's like it.
I've only seen 2 big bugs. I mean, there's the usual things like companions getting stuck in corners.
Typical cooperative stuff.
There's only 2 bugs I've seen that are common. So one of them is if you are in the star map and you switch from one survey mission to another, and also a lot of times just one quest to the other. The quest marker for the planet system you're supposed to go to will not update. You'll have to back out and go back in. Minor, but still should work. It still should work properly. The main thing was a hard crash I ran into where early on, I think it's the first mission for the UC Vanguard, there's a terramorph on a planet, and when it first pops out, it's like a scripted thing where it jumps out and kills another animal, and you're like, oh, here it is. Okay, now we got to deal with it. But but so when I saw it, because I'm me, my first instinct was I got to scan the terramorph.
Of course.
Do not scan the terramorph.
Oh, really?
Because it hard crashed to the desktop.
Wow.
And I did again.
You're
same
able to
thing.
replicate it.
It really does not want you to, because it's not a native creature on that planet. So something is happening there to kill it. So yeah, that was the only real serious bug.
I was impressed. I mean, you can see the muscle of Microsoft QA.
Yeah. Oh, and I don't know if it's a bug, but at one point, sometimes you can find ships. Ships will land on the planet. You can go find them, and sometimes you fight, or sometimes it's just people to talk to or trade with. But I found it was an Eclipse mercenary group, and they were just landing as I was getting there, and the ramp comes down, and they're all in the little hold, and I just start throwing grenades in, and I run in and I burn them off, because I'm like, I'm going to steal your fucking ship. And in the middle of fighting them inside the little like landing bay, the ship starts taking off again.
What?
And I'm like, like what's going to happen now? And I'm like, should I get off? Because I see the ramp. I'm like, no, I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, and what happens is, as it like basically like lifted about 50 feet off the ground, I clipped through the bottom of the ship and fell. And
the game was like, you can't be in here.
No,
and spit you out.
Like, I was like, oh, is this going to happen? Am I going to get stuck here and have to steal the ship and get back to? I'm like, no, it's just going to clip you through it, and that's the end of it.
I feel like the rub in this game is that there's all this stuff that's really cool, and you find this emergent gameplay, these things that happen that you don't expect, but ultimately it feels like a lot of it doesn't matter. And so I don't know if that's like okay, like. It lets you fiddle around and do stuff, but you don't have to do it. Like, it's an interesting way to design a game. Yeah.
And that's sort of how it is. In the same way that, like I haven't taken a ton of screenshots because one of the things, they were pretty upfront about this, but a lot of this stuff in the game is just airless moons. Yeah. It's just, look, that's true in No Man's Sky a lot, too. Yeah. But, like, but it does make the times you find something lush or interesting or very color laden more special and more like, okay, because I don't take as many screenshots as I did like No Man's Sky or like Ghost of Tsushima, games that have a lot more color usage going on. But when you do find something like that in this game, it's amazing. Yeah. And every once in a while you'll be like, oh, I have some shots where it's like it's a forest, and those giant brain cage things are running from the mantis things, and there's a giant ringed gas giant up there. I'm just like, it's amazing. Oh, yeah. And the other thing I love...
It's like a poster from the 70s.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I love is that the game uses your screenshots you take as the load screen.
Yeah, it does.
Pictures after that. And I'm like, that's cool.
That's a nice touch.
That's a neat idea.
But this game has lots of stuff like that. Nice little touches, which makes some of the more obvious mistakes all the more like befuddling. It's like... Why?
That's the thing. Is like it's like a lot of it is like stuff I wouldn't really call mistakes, but it's like, as James Cameron said about Alien 3, it's not how I would have done it. Yeah. It's just they're clearly choices that were made. Yeah. And I don't really agree with them. Yeah. But I can't really argue with them because it's their game. But it's like I don't know. Like I do like it a lot.
Me too.
I really really like the game a lot.
I've enjoyed my time with it almost 100%, honestly. Yeah. Like, there's issues here and there and things that, like, I don't want to say nitpicking. They're bigger than nitpicks. But there's things that I think will affect certain people more than others. Mm-hmm. Some people don't mind encumbrance. I don't know how many there are, but there's some. But, like, it drives me crazy.
I mean, I got to grips with it, but it's, like, it's annoying to me that was like the first 10 hours of my game. Yeah. Was, like, figuring that out.
Just constantly, like, dealing with it.
Like,
yep.
and there is an element of like, you know, and this is, you know, oh, it gets good after whatever. Not really, but like, you have to, because everything your character can do is a skill. Everything.
Yeah, literally everything. Yeah.
Like down, like,
even the most
beyond the most basic stuff of like pulling a trigger.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
You have to take the time to get maybe 5 or 6 levels and start to sort of tweak the character into what you want to be and what you want to do. Even beyond, I mean, I will say, people are talking about like, oh, your origin doesn't matter because even if you're an explorer or whatever, you still start as a miner or whatever. And it's like, that's not the point. The point is what skills you start with a jump on. Yeah. And you have to decide what you want to be, those skills that you would be more interested in having. It's that's what you want to be able to do right off the bat. I picked explorer because I knew I wanted to jump further and have that kind of that scanning and piloting ability. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff with that too. Like, but
then ultimately that's probably ended up being a bad decision, right?
Well, I liked it better than being able to like jump to different systems further.
Yeah.
The other thing with the piloting is like the first level of piloting, which I didn't end up taking piloting, and my explorer didn't give you that, but I took it pretty early on. Eventually, because I was finding I wasn't able to really dogfight effectively, and part of that was just the starting ship is kind of garbage. Yeah. But like it's like, okay, unlocks thrusters. Well, thrusters might help. They never tell you how to use the fucking thrusters.
They don't. Yeah.
You have to hold RB and like suddenly it says thruster and you can turn faster. Yeah. It never tells you that.
No, you're right.
It never tells you how targeting mode works. You just sort of unlock it.
Yeah.
And the worst part was, so targeting mode for me was a problem because by the time I unlocked targeting mode, I had bought a ship called the Shield Breaker. The Shield Breaker has 3 laser turrets that you don't control. The turrets just fire on their own, and they shred. It's called a shield breaker for a reason. It shreds the shields, and then you just use this ballistic weapon with the left trigger to like wear down the hull. Yep. And it's great. But because they are auto turrets, there is no targeting mode option. So for like 4 hours, I'm like, how does targeting mode work? I can't get targeting mode to work. And I was like, oh, you just hit X when it happened. I'm like, I can't. There's no X. And eventually I switched to another ship. I'm like, oh, this doesn't work on the ship I happen to have when I got. That's terrible.
That is terrible.
Tell me that this ship doesn't have targeting mode or something. Yeah. Like it's so weird.
Again, it's those moments like the 0 days since incidents. Yeah, you're like, wow, that's amazing. And then there's this other thing that's just completely overlooked. It's a dichotomy with this game in general, I think, and I think people's mileage will vary with this depending on the things that they like or the things that annoy them, and I think it's hard to figure out whether Starfield is right for each person.
Yeah, well, I've described it to several people as like, you know, the good news is it's a Bethesda RPG in space.
Yeah,
and the bad news is,
and it is.
Yeah, and the bad news is it's a Bethesda RPG in space. Like, it's like if you don't like if the things that annoy you about Bethesda RPGs are still going to annoy you here because they're all still here.
Yeah. I feel like its Metacritic is pretty accurate right now. It's like an 8.6, 8.7. Like, that's probably right around where
I thought it would be. Here and there you get weird shit. Like, Sterling's review for this was nonsense.
I didn't watch it or read it.
Sterling gave it a 4.
Whoa. Wow.
Because it's broken garbage, and basically if you like garbage, you'll like this. Because if you like the garbage Bethesda's been shoveling out for 20 years, you'll be happy. But those of us
So he's never liked Bethesda games?
I guess not, but I'm also like, dude, no Souls fan gets to fucking say that to me. I'm sorry. I don't have the stack here anymore, or I would drop that fucking Armored Core stack, because I'm sorry, but they just got the same score for making the same game for the 14th fucking time with Armored Core 6, and it has all the same problems and all the same advantages, but no one fucking gives them shit. Bethesda makes this game. That's what they do.
Yeah.
From makes this game. That's what they do.
Yeah.
With all the same issues and problems and stupid shit that they have never fixed from the Souls games either. But no one gets pissed about that. And in the meantime, IGN gives it a 7?
Yeah.
And that's fine. Sure, you gave 7, whatever. You're not the... I'm sorry, but a week and a half earlier, your same website gave Immortals of Avium an 8 out of 10. And if you think Immortals of Avium is an 8 and this is a 7, we are not going to get along.
I'll be honest with you, Matt. That was one of the hardest things for me as head of editorial everywhere I worked, was making sure that stuff like that didn't happen. Making the reviews consistent so people couldn't say, but you gave this game that I think is way worse a higher score. It's hard.
Yeah, because they're different reviewers. And but
like, trying to explain that to my guys and girls was difficult. It's like, look, like, I'm the one who gets taken to task when you come in and you're like, I really like this game that other people don't like as much as you. And then there's this other game that you say you hate that everybody loves. Like, I'm the one who has to manage that. I'm the one who has to message that or whatever on invisible walls when I go on or whatever. It's hard to do, but it's not impossible. You have to be good. And I feel like maybe if you're as big as IGN, you've been around as long as IGN, I have a feeling, and I don't know this for a fact, but I do have a feeling that at a certain point, IGN was like, fuck it.
We give up, yeah.
Because when you review that many games, someone's going to go back to like Space Station Silicon Valley for the N60. You gave that a 9. Like,
right, well, that's ridiculous. But it's like...
But that's the way they are ridiculous, though, Matt.
But
These
also,
people,
like, there's an element of, like, I mean, look, my main issue isn't even that Starfield got a 7. It's more like, you gave Immortals of Aveum an 8?
Yeah.
You out of your fucking mind?
Fair enough.
You want to talk about something that doesn't do anything different or anything new or anything better?
Yeah.
That's not an 8.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like, there's no ambition to that.
It is a challenge to do, though, if you're head of editorial, to try to keep it consistent.
Sure.
Even just generation to generation is a challenge. So
for sure.
I feel a little bit for him in that way.
It's just a very weird... that and PC Gamer was, like, tweeting, like, these terrible art... Like they were basically, like, trolling this week. It was like...
Well, Matt, here's one thing that I was surprised at was people that didn't get review code. So Bethesda reaches out to me way before the game comes out. They're like, here's review code, here's your review guide, blah, blah, blah. You need anything? I have like a person I can email if I have questions and all this. And then I find out that like Eurogamer didn't get early review code at all. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, okay, so we got early review code, but Eurogamer didn't? And you do wonder if say you're the editor-in-chief of Eurogamer and you stumble across GameFace and here's Shane and you're like, Shane runs this small publication now, and he got review code. I could see where it would make you very angry.
Shane never pissed Pete off.
Well, I have actually in the past, but I've worked with Pete for like 20-some years. Like, they know me. I've banged on some of their games.
But it's not like they don't know Eurogamer, too.
Right, but maybe that EIC has only been there 3 years. They don't have a relationship. I don't know why, but I can start to see where some publications might have got really pissed. And been like, what's going on here?
But PC Gamer stuff was vitriolic.
I didn't see any.
It was very weird.
I didn't see any of it.
I actually muted them.
PC Gamer, for whatever reason, stopped working with our admin. Their RSS feeds are all borked, and we don't get their feeds anymore. And so we just don't curate their stuff, so I don't see it anymore, which is why I didn't see all their stories. But it is funny. There's a few websites that have taken steps back with their technology over the last couple years. Like, our site is built for the future. So as more sites come online with modern, like the way they're programming sites, like they start working better with Sifted. Some of them have gone backwards. They used to work great with Sifted, and now they don't, which is weird. So that's one of them. But I do think that there were some pissed off editors out there who did not get treated the way they thought they should be treated. And I don't know if that leaked over into their impressions and how they covered the game. I don't know. I will say this, Matt, as somebody who runs this crazy monster that gets all the feeds of all the websites and all the YouTube channels, I have never seen a game covered like Starfield. It destroyed Tears of the Kingdom, which, according to reports, I don't know how true they are, the editor-in-chief of Kotaku lost their job over covering Tears of the Kingdom too much. It destroyed Tears of the Kingdom. It destroyed Breath of the Wild. There has never been a game. So when I start working, we have this huge list of all the stuff that's coming in, and I can sort it. There's a search feature. I would sort by Starfield. Every morning when I would wake up, there would be almost 400 pieces of Starfield content. Now, a lot of them would just be like, how to find the cog in Starfield, how to find this in Starfield. Sites have shifted so much towards guides. It is crazy, man. Like, you can just see it's the only way that they can get traffic to their websites anymore.
Well, there were things like every once in a while when I'd look up stuff, like, and I've done this with other games too, to look this thing. There's like guides on like Newsweek and like
it's
car mechanic website. It was like, what are you doing?
Sports Illustrated,
it's
all
crazy.
of them. It's the only internet traffic for games that does any business anymore. But the problem now is that everybody's doing it, and so now it's diluted for everybody, and now that doesn't work either. So it's been crazy. I mean, there has never been a game. We launched 8 years ago now. There's never been a game in the last 8 years that was covered anywhere near as much as Starfield. It really is insane. It has just been complete saturation since the day it launched. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Anything. So a lot of these sites are like, getting code early, it's almost more important to get the code early to make the guide than have the review up on day one. Like, the reviews don't even really matter anymore. It's about getting that code early so you can hand it to your guides dude or girl, and they can start grinding and start creating guides for it, because that's the only thing that's generating, like, traffic anymore. So it's been this huge changing of the guard for editorial websites and gaming over the last, like, 3 years, and it all came to pass with Starfield. It's just been insane. Like, when I start in the morning curating now, I just sort by Starfield and just delete, because it's just hundreds of things that are just, like, so specific. How do you turn around and start? I mean, stuff that stupid, Matt. Like, how do you put your helmet on or take it off in Starfield? Just one after another from every website. So it's been interesting watching the coverage, and I do think some outlets are probably a little salty over not getting code early, and maybe that has bled over into their coverage. I don't know. But it's been interesting to watch, nevertheless. So, but I would say that's 2 thumbs up from you and I on Starfield.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I've really enjoyed it.
For all the weird things and choices, like, it puts you there.
Yeah.
Like, it gets it. It works.
I've had a lot of fun. I've had a lot of moments where I'm like, wow. And there aren't enough games that do that for me anymore. Yeah. Starfield did it many, many times.
And I will keep going back to, even when we move on to other things, I will go back to it. I'm
not done with it yet.
I know this is the thing I'm going to play when over Christmas when I'm, done with everything else.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see the 10th anniversary edition. That's probably going to be a banger.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do hope they expand stuff going forward. I hope, because, like, a lot of people using, like, console commands and stuff have found, like, you can get out of the ship. And there's physics for the character outside the ship. You can land on asteroids. You can put outposts on asteroids.
Yeah.
Like, clearly there's a lot of room there to grow.
To do stuff.
So I hope there's some stuff that happens with that.
And I'll say this too, like, I finished the pre-vow and then slept like 3 hours and got on a plane and went to the East Coast. And I will say, for the next 10 days while I was on the East Coast, I thought about Starfield a lot. And I wasn't really engaged. I was doing some curation and stuff, but I wasn't really engaged with the games industry like I usually am. It just permeated my thoughts. That's powerful. That's like an X factor with game development that I don't know if you can quantify. And in Starfield, it worked on me. It worked its magic on me. It was something that was occupying my thoughts even when I wasn't playing it. So I think there's something to be said for that. So it didn't turn out to be, like, I drafted it number 1 on my fantasy team. It ended up not being worthy of that. I kind of suspected it wouldn't be, but I felt like I needed to take the chance that it was this kind of
well, it's like I said back, I'm like, either this is going to get in that 87, 90 range, or it's going to be like a 60.
Right.
Like one or the other.
And it worked out okay.
Look, it's about the same score Spider-Man 2 is going to get.
Nah, I think it'll score higher, but we'll see.
The others didn't.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to be the same thing.
Yeah, but I would recommend, like, if somebody came to me and, like, I don't want Game Pass, should I pay 60 or 70 bucks for this? I would say yes. I would be okay with paying the full 70 bucks for Starfield.
I paid $100 for it and I'm happy with it.
Yeah,
so I will say, though, that the Sony people trying to, like, all the, like, oh, well, you can't do this or you can't do that, or, like, there's limited, you can only go this far from the ship, or okay, well, when Spider-Man 2 comes out, I better see you complain you can't go into every building in Manhattan and talk to the guy at the front desk, because that's the same level of thing you're complaining about.
Yep. Erebus Jones says, PC Gamer went and 2-footed on Diablo 4 in exactly the same way earlier this year. Not just we didn't like it much, it crossed into mean-spirited coverage, too. And that is where you cross the line.
Yeah, the PC Gamer stuff on Starfield has
That's
been, like,
bad editorial.
Awful.
Nothing you guys ever watch or read on a website, on YouTube, whatever, should ever make you think that person is mean-spirited.
Like, it's like some of the headlines, I mean, I wasn't reading them, obviously, but some of the headlines on the tweets were like, it was shit I would expect from, like, one of those stupid, like, racist YouTube clickbait rage guys.
That's embarrassing.
It was awful.
Yeah, well, maybe that explains why they didn't get code.
I don't know.
I don't know either, but... so anyway...
Like, it was weird in the sense that I would read the thing and then I'd have to go back. PC Gamer said that?
Yeah, because they have a pretty good reputation generally. Yeah.
And also,
I'm surprised
in my head, I mean, I know they've been around forever and I probably have my own preconceptions having read them back in the 90s and beyond, but, like... They're kind of pretty dry. Like, just sort of like, they're pretty straightforward. Like, and I'm just like, what the hell is this? Like,
it is weird. Yep. So anyway, there's Starfield. I mean, is there DLC coming for this? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, you got it. If you got the collector's edition, you got the first DLC included.
Story DLC, though, I mean.
Like, Shattered Civilization. I don't remember the name of it. It was like...
Is it story DLC?
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
I have a feeling this game's going to live on for a long.
No, we'll get. I think we'll get several. DLCs
it's going to be a platform, I believe. I mean, look at Skyrim.
It's a galaxy. You can add shit forever. Like it doesn't matter.
Literally to infinity.
The other thing I will note that I very much appreciate. All the stars in this game are real.
Yeah.
They're all real stars.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you don't call the one star Cheyenne. It's not because no one's, some rich guy from Wyoming hasn't landed there and called it Cheyenne. But, like, if you look at the stats on the thing, it lists the catalog number. You look the catalog number up, that's the same star. I think it's in Buddhist, I think. But it's like, same star. They did the research. All the astronomical data is correct.
Again,
they're all in the right place.
Touches there, but then in other places, blatant misses. It's so weird.
Right.
But anyway, ultimately,
it is a pretty accurate slice of the Milky Way galaxy.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
At the end of it all, Starfield is a great game. It's a great video game, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And I recommend you buy it, purchase it. I mean, I honestly recommend you get Game Pass. But to what we were just talking about a minute ago, this game's going to live on.
Yeah, and when I have my character say something, I don't have to roll a die to see if they actually get to say it. So that's an even better bonus to me.
There you go.
Although the persuasion system doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it doesn't. We didn't actually get to that, but you're right. Yeah,
but it doesn't happen that
It's
often.
just all luck, pretty much.
Yeah, I can't figure out what the.
I never cracked the code. I couldn't crack the code on it.
The other thing I would say, this is the best lockpicking system they've ever come up with.
Yeah,
Bethesda.
I like that system.
It actually works pretty well.
Yeah.
I like it. It took me a while to figure out what it was.
Me too. Like the first couple, I was like,
what?
I solved them on accident. The first couple, and then I figured it out.
Yeah, and then it got to the point early on where I'm just going to quick save every time I do this because I don't actually understand what's happening.
And I don't want to waste my picks.
You don't want to run out of digipicks, but but no, that's actually a really cool puzzle.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the long-awaited discussion of Starfield here on GameFace. I'm sure we'll continue to discuss this game into infinity because I feel like, again, it's going to be a game that lives on as a platform and has legs. And we'll talk about it when we need to.
People are already mods up to turn it all into Star Wars.
No.
Like you can turn all the UC Vanguard guys into stormtroopers. Already.
Nice.
Like they're
on PC.
On PC, yeah.
Hopefully on console someday because that is coming to Starfield.
Yeah, Todd said they're putting
next
mods
year.
in.
Yep.
So
awesome.
That'll be great.
All right. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about another game that has been receiving accolades over the last week and a half and has been selling very well. It is a kickstarted RPG that was framed after the classic RPGs from the 90s, specifically Chrono Trigger. I think is the one that they've kind of zeroed in on.
Chrono Trigger is definitely the big
the big inspiration. It's a game called Sea of Stars. It was a kickstarted game, and they've already made, in like the first day, they made like all their money back and then some. It is a JRPG made in 2023, and I really mean that. Yeah. Like, it is literally a 16-bit RPG that considers the modern contrivances and has these elements in them that those RPGs that we played way back then did not have. I've only played like the first hour and a half of this game. I played as much as I could last night, and that's all I could play. Matt, you have been playing a ton of it, so I'm going to have to lean on you a little bit.
I played like 5 hours.
Okay. But I still will probably have to lean on you considerably for this discussion. What do you think?
Mostly playing Starfield, but I did switch to this once in a while.
Yeah. And that's an interesting dichotomy as well, going from a modern 3D action RPG to the stuff that we played when we were teenagers, or maybe a little younger.
Yeah. I was almost 20 when Chrono Trigger came out.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
But as I always say, execution is more important, and they have executed on this one for sure.
Yeah. What strikes you the most about Sea of Stars? What is it about it that?
I think the fact that it's genre savvy enough to avoid the pitfalls of what makes the genre annoying.
Yeah.
The characters are enthusiastic and exuberant without being overbearing.
Mm-hmm.
The combat has nuance to it without being overcomplicated to the point that you feel you have to like solve a puzzle every time you play a battle. The story is sort of in the wheelhouse of how these things work, but it's not crazy. Like it's not like overwrought and take itself super seriously like a Square game would. And in general, it just kind of takes the best of what that era had to offer and kind of melds it together into an existing game. Like, there's nothing particularly new here, but it all comes together in a way that I don't know if anyone has managed to do before. Like, it's a mix of Chrono Trigger and Mario RPG and Seiken Densetsu.
It's like this stuff: the climbing, the shimmying, there's rope walking, there's platforming. Like, a lot of this stuff didn't happen in those 16-bit JRPGs back in the day.
And there's a lot of... and if they did, they were very rudimentary.
Right. And clunky and weird.
And there's a bunch of, there's a lot of action elements to the turn-based... it's turn-based combat, but there's actually... you have to hit the button when you attack, and you'll get an extra attack in, like Mario. You have to hit the button when you get attacked, and you'll defend and take less damage.
Yeah.
Everybody, when an enemy tries to cast a spell, they'll pop a bunch of like symbols above them, and if you can hit them with those types of attacks before they pop their magic off, you'll cancel the attack, which is great. Or if you just happen to hit them with a little bit, you'll lessen the damage of the attack, which makes it feel like you never really fail.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can't cancel both these attacks, but I can cancel this one and get 2 of the 3 on this one, so it'll only hit me for 67%, which still feels like you did something. So it's very good about making you feel like you always have an option.
I like how the combat doesn't slow the game down.
Yeah.
How the skirmishes just happen. It's not like this does this spinny thing and then it takes you to this other screen.
Yeah.
And then there's like a music sting.
And that's straight out of Chrono Trigger.
Right. Like it just happens.
All the enemies are on the map.
Yep.
And the fight happens right there on the map.
I love that. And I think it for people who maybe didn't play those old JRPGs who are playing something like this now, they won't appreciate that there were very few games that did that back in the day. And then how do you feel about this? Like the cinematics that just kind of pop up out of nowhere that are like hand drawn?
They're all right, but like they don't look great. It's weird how
I think that's where it shows its budget a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, it's weird how the animated scenes don't look as good as the character portraits.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, because the in-game stuff looks amazing. This game looks incredible. By the way, there was no game back in the 90s that looked this good.
No.
This is using modern technology.
This might be what you remember it looking like, but it didn't look like
it did not look like this at all. And I think the visuals
is definitely
in this
taking
game,
all of modern... it's taking a lot of modern things into account in how they're doing it.
Yeah, for sure.
Down to the resolution of what you can make the character portraits look like.
Yeah. I found the art in this to be incredible. Like, to me, that was one of the things that really hit me. The environments are all interesting and exciting. You want to see what's on the next screen. And that was that's something about those old games that I feel like modern games have lost. One thing that old games had that modern games have lost is how they looked better as the game went on. Like, the earlier levels were always very rudimentary, and then they always saved like the best looking levels for like the last few levels. I feel like games don't really do that anymore.
Well, because they learned that only about 20% of people
never make
games,
it there.
So they front load it with the good stuff.
But the other idea is that, like, as long as it's good enough to get them started, like, it should compel you to keep playing. But you're right, that has not happened over time. But
the worst example being God of War 3, which never gets better than its opening fight.
Yeah, you're right, actually. And then these old games where you couldn't see, like, what's next, like, making it to that next screen. Like, games don't really do that anymore. Like, this game, everything looks so good and everything is so interesting that you can't wait to get to that next doorway that pans over to see that next area. Like, it was just... Again, I only played this for an hour, but the amount of feels that I had that took me back to those days, it was just like one after another after another.
Well, they do a good job with that and the graphics and the music and sort of the pacing of it. There's an element of because a lot of it is not actually a direct analog to like the way they would do it back in the day, because the back in the day stuff was way clunkier most of the time.
Yeah.
There's a reason Chrono Trigger's held up, because it's one of like the few that isn't.
Yeah.
And this game does bring to mind a thing that I've seen people describe stuff like synthwave and retro vaporwave as, which is nostalgia for something that never happened.
Yeah.
And this game is like that. It's like this game panders to the nostalgia for things that you think how they were and not how they really were. Which is actually how you need to do it.
It's a feeling.
That's the smarter way to do it.
It's not something specific. It's a feeling. Like synthwave. Like synthwave in the 80s was just top 40.
Right.
And if you listen to synthwave now and go back and listen to like Madonna, get into the groove,
it doesn't sound like it. There's nothing from the 80s that sounds like
no.
It's just a concept.
It's the spirit of it.
It's the concept of like, home is not a place, it's a time.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to capture that, what people think that time feels like, not what it really felt like.
Yeah. That's this game.
This, by the way, is one of the failings of Stranger Things.
That's a good point,
because
actually.
Stranger Things fails to do that
because
all the time.
What Stranger Things does is it just goes back and looks at what was popular and just tries to jam it into the show in some way.
Right. And if you were there,
you realize that it's not how it was. Yeah.
No.
Even the arcade scenes in Stranger Things just feel a little off.
They're a little off.
It's not dingy enough. It's too pristine and clean and day glow.
Tilt didn't look like that.
There wasn't some dude like burning his cigarette on the Street Fighter arcade machine, like burning like a gouge into the top. Like that's what arcades were. But when you see them in Stranger Things, they're all like all perfect and clean, and everybody's like nice.
They're all dressed in the perfect screen accurate Ghostbusters costumes. You're like, no, not what happened.
That's not how it was. Yeah, there were fights at the arcade. Like,
oh yeah,
there was. So anyway, you're right.
That one guy who was shaking everybody's hand when they came in. And you're like, oh, he's really friendly. No, he's selling the drugs.
Yeah,
that's what he's there for.
He wants to meet you.
Took me years to figure out what that dude was. I thought the arcade just had like a greeter.
Yeah, like
halfway
like Walmart. Yeah. Swanland asks, did you get bored or sick of the charging feature after a while? Not. I mean, I only played an hour, so I'm not the right person to answer that.
That what he's talking about. Did you get to that where the orbs start popping out of the guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like basically you absorb the orbs and you get a powered up thing. No, I think that's integral enough to how you need to get through and cancel the spells. That because the thing about that is like early on you're like, okay, well now this guy's thing is it's a blunt weapon and it's 2 blunt weapons and a moon. Mm-hmm. But how can I do that when I can do 2 blunt weapon attacks with her? Or I could do moon attack and a blunt weapon with this crescent slice, or I can do moon attacks repeatedly with the moonerang, which by the way is a great little mini game.
Yeah.
Bounce the moonerang back and forth. You get like points for however better damage based on, and like you can get that going.
It's a little bit like Mario RPG in some ways. Yeah.
And like but like and you're like, okay, how do I do that? Well, it turns out when you absorb the orbs, it magifies your attack. So I can do the two blunt attack, but it counts as a moon attack because I've gotten the magic orbs. So it becomes part of the strategy of and what you can add. And so like deciding which character gets to absorb the orbs becomes a thing. And if you can really power it up, you have the other 2 attack normally drop double the orbs and then have the third one absorb it, go in, and that can sometimes win you the fight. Like the strategy and how you figure out how it all works is really satisfying. And I mean, maybe another 20 hours I'll get sick of it, but
so
for now it's still interesting. And every time you run into a new area and there's different enemies and they do different things and their attacks have different timing to block them, and like their mix of elements you need are different to counter them. Like it's all very satisfying. Like, I don't have a single negative thing to say.
I don't either, actually. But I only played an hour of it. I'm spellbound by it already, and I want to play more. Even with Starfield sitting there, even with like a bunch of games I need to play for next week's show, I want to spend more time with Sea of Stars for sure. If you're into the classic JRPGs from the 90s, like this is a no-brainer purchase, really.
Yeah, even if you are into that and don't think modern takes on it work very well, this one does.
It does, yeah.
This is the one that got it right.
Music is also what I play great. Yeah,
like just all across the board. Like I don't back. I mean, obviously this was a couple of years ago, but I don't back video game Kickstarters much anymore. But I did back this one, and Ayuden Chronicles are basically the last ones I have left. And they nailed it. I'm
hoping Ayuden Chronicles delivers like this one.
Oh, I would very much like Ayuden Chronicles to be as good as this.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Cinetyke says some synthwave is more faithful to the 80s. Some. Comtruce. I don't know. I don't think it is, man. Like if you go back, if you listen to the synthwave bands now and go back and listen to the music from the 80s, it was way more saccharine and poppy than what synthwave is. Synthwave is kind of dark at times.
Yeah, like the closest you'd probably get was like some of the less popular like new wave stuff in the early 80s kind of had that element.
The stuff that was kind of on the fringe.
But those also weren't using the synth stuff to the same degree.
Yeah.
So it's like synthwave is a conglomeration of a bunch of ideas that we have and feelings we had about that era overall. It is not a replication of any kind of music from the time.
Yeah. Yep. I wish synthwave was around the 80s.
Which is not a criticism of synthwave. I love that. I saw the Midnight in concert a couple months ago. It was great.
Yeah.
I love all that stuff. But it's because it evokes this feeling for thing that never happened.
Yeah.
Which is a valid thing.
Yeah.
It's a valid way to do it. It's always more important that something be true than for it to be real when it comes to art.
I agree. That's Very succinct and very true.
And Sea of Stars is true.
It is.
Even if it's not really what those games were like.
No, it's managed to reimagine it for a new audience.
Yeah.
Very well. So that's also, I mean, again...
Yeah, I think it'll hit your nostalgia if you were there and like those games. I think it'll still be a good game to you if you've never played those games.
I agree. Yeah, and again...
it stands on its own.
Mm-hmm. And I've only played an hour, so I'm just going to remind you of that. But what I've played of it so far was amazing. It's like the cheapest way to go back to like my childhood. Which, by the way, like we were saying, though, it really wasn't my childhood. Mm-hmm. It's what my mind has flavored my childhood to be over years and years.
Yeah, don't go back and play those again.
No, exactly. This is better. That's what we're getting at. Yeah. And Barry Lomax says the production today is also insane. Technology is so advanced. Yeah, the production of music is so insane. It really is. Like, I just got the new Slow Dive album. And the production on that album is insane. There's one song that starts, and, like, you can just hear, like, a hiss. And I at first thought that it was, like, a mistake, that they had horribly recorded the track. Or maybe they were intentionally trying to make it sound like you're listening to the song on, like, cassette or something. And then, if you're wearing your AirPods with spatial audio, that hiss takes off and goes above your head and spins around your head like a halo. Like, the stuff that they're doing in music now is crazy. Crazy awesome. So, to your point, you're right. There are technological advancements in audio now that make modern stuff sound better. It's true.
Yes, Mellow Pintor. Shane has already made excuses for the Steelers.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the show.
Yeah, you got here late. And it was just one game. We'll see how it goes, people. They started 2-4 last year and did just fine. So, anyway, if he's the guy that bet against Mike Tomlin finally having his first losing season, I'll just remind you of that. So, anyway... That's Sea of Stars. 2 thumbs up from GameFace on that one. Highly recommended. It's available for everything. I think it's on Game Pass.
Yes.
And PlayStation Plus.
I don't know about I didn't look.
I don't think it's free.
Plus.
I think it's a part of one of those $400 tiers that you can pay for.
I got a code for PC for Steam and PlayStation from my Kickstarter, so I didn't look at that. But I did see it's on Game Pass.
Yep. So anyway, if you're a Game Pass subscriber, dive on in. I think you'll love it if you can pull yourself away from Starfield. Next up.
I'm still disappointed in the lack of Garfield jokes about Starfield.
No, yeah.
Starfield!
I should have done better with the lower third as well.
I took a picture of... I found it was actually a pretty cool place. I was on a ship, a derelict ship, and the gravity kept failing. So everything would float for a while, and then everything would drop back down.
Yeah.
You had to work your way through it. And I found there was a mug that just said it was like it didn't say "I hate Mondays," but I think it said "Mondays." Am I right?
Yeah.
And I took a picture of it floating in midair in front of my character's face, and I put it on Twitter and said confirmed Starfield hates Mondays, and no one got it.
No one gets it because we're too old.
Garfield's still around.
The young audience, I don't think, knows Garfield.
Everybody knows Garfield.
Do you think they know that he loves lasagna?
I think the only thing they know is he hates Mondays and loves lasagna. The Monday thing has never made any sense, though, because he doesn't have a job.
Right. Why would it matter? Days don't matter to cats.
No. Well, maybe he actually misses John.
Oh, that's true.
Secretly
Sad day.
Heartwarming.
Sad day. Anyway, all right. It's time for Name That Game. But before we do that, we have a word from our other awesome sponsor, SoundWizardry.com. Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel. A big thanks to soundwizardry.com for supporting GameFace and Sifted. Head to soundwizardry.com if you have any sound needs. They've done a bunch of stuff for us. They've fixed borked episodes of GameFace when we've had audio issues. They've actually done a lot of work for us behind the scenes that you guys don't know about. They created the jingle for when we get achievements on the site. So if you get an achievement on Sifted, the little thing that pops up, the animation, the sound effect for that was created by soundwizardry.com. They do a ton of stuff. Obviously worked on Baldur's Gate 3 where the audio is incredible. Head to soundwizardry.com for any of your sound needs. And now, It's time.
Seeing the Alan Wake footage, and that reminded me that Alone in the Dark made the wise choice and bailed out to next year.
Meanwhile, a bunch of other games keep announcing release dates for October.
Mm-hmm.
Again, call the Duh Consulting Agency. Duh. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, it's even kind of a shame that Sea of Stars ended up where it did.
Yeah.
But
it worked out okay, though.
Worked all right. It's a different thing.
For sure.
I don't feel... It's almost like a nice little refreshing drink after Starfield
Lemonade.
For 9 hours.
That cool, refreshing drink. All right. It's time for... Okay, I'm just going to go out on a limb right now, and I'm going to say we're going to make it to at least the third image in today's Name That Game. At least the third. And I think this might be the first one in a long time that it takes to the fifth image for you guys to get it. I could be wrong. I'm wrong about you guys all the time. You literally blow my mind every week. I don't know why I even bother saying stuff like this anymore, but I'm pretty confident that this one will at least make it to the third image, but we'll see. Name That Game is very simple. I show you 5 screenshots. You try to name the game that those screenshots are from before Matt Kyle. There's a couple things to do or think of before you play. If you won already this year, do not play. If you will not play a PC game or you don't have a friend who will play a PC game, please do not play. And the third thing is the chat is on slow mode, which means you can only put in one chat comment per 60 seconds. So do not spam the chat with a bunch of random game names hoping you get it right. You never will get it right. Matt, have you ever thought about, like, if people, like, sit at home and just try to type in random codes into, like, PSN and Xbox to see if they can just guess codes?
Probably.
Do you think you could do it?
I don't know. I
think PlayStation codes you might be able to, because there's only, 9 letters or numbers or whatever? The codes aren't as long for PlayStation?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's still a lot of combinations.
It is. But I'm
sure there's, 9-year-old kids with no money that just do that.
Sitting there all day punching in codes. Anyway, those are the rules for Name That Game. They're pretty simple. We have 5 images to get through, and we're just about to show you the first one. Are you ready to go, Matt?
Sure. Even though there's a cat in the way.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. The kid, Luna's trying to give you a handicap so you can't see the screenshots. All right, here we go. Here's the first image for Name That Game, and go. Somebody gets it from this, they're cheating. That's all I got to say. See if we got any guesses. Watch Dogs, no.
Even Watch Dogs had higher res than that.
Grand Theft Auto 5, no. Last of Us, no. Red Dead Redemption 2, no. I know what it is, but I won't say it. The title ends... you shouldn't even say that. Watch Dogs 2, no. Baldur's Gate, no.
Dishonored.
No, it's not Dishonored. And by the way, Ashes in the Hourglass is wrong, so don't take his advice. He may be just trying to throw you off of the scent. Okay, I think that's the last guess. I didn't think anybody would get it from this first one, and nobody did. And here is image 2. That's a much better hint. Infamous, no. Deus Ex Mankind Divided, no. From Sergio Proxy. Black Flag, no. Saints Row, no. Spider-Man, no. That's a good guess. GTA 4, no. That's a good guess. Barry Lemax says, I heard that, Luna. Spider-Man, no. Call of Duty Warzone, no. Mirror's Edge, no. Battlefield 3, no. Dying Light, no. Yakuza, no.
Yakuza's never had a vista like that.
No. Dying Light, no. Modern Warfare, no.
Ghost Recon Breakpoint?
Nope. Just Cause 3, no. Flight Simulator, no. That's a pretty good guess, though. Matrix Demo, no. Another good guess. Call of Duty Warzone, nope. I can see why, because that one trailer, everything's on the rooftops. Oh!
Wow.
He got it. Ashes in the Hourglass ended up getting it, which is bizarre.
That didn't end in ER.
Yeah. What is going on here, Ashes in the Hourglass? Well, it didn't make it to the third image. I don't know how he got it. That's kind of crazy.
That's the only Battlefield I've never played.
Yeah, that's why nobody played it. That's why I figured nobody would ever get it. Like, I really thought nobody was going to get this one. I thought it would go all the way to 5, and I'd have to tell you guys what the game was. And so I'm curious how he thought. Where's the ED? Like, it's just such a weird name, that game.
Maybe he forgot the L in Battlefield.
Battlefield. Yeah. And Mellow Pintor says, I was never going to get that. Nobody played the game. Yeah, it's totally true. I can't believe that Ashes in the Hourglass got it. Sneaky says, it's the only Battlefield I've played.
Amazing. Man doesn't know about like basic video game stuff, but he's played this Battlefield.
That's bizarre, Ashes. I don't know how he got it. Anyway, here's the last 3 screenshots. There's one. That's number 3. And I thought somebody might get it from that. And then number 4 shows the destruction in the game, which should have driven people to Battlefield. And then they think about the other screenshots, and then maybe they get Hardline. And then here's the 5th one, which actually shows like the masked enemies, which was a big part of Hardline, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, another round of applause for Ashes in the Hourglass. I'm going to assume you didn't cheat. I don't know how you got it, but I'm going to assume you did not cheat. And as usual, to collect your free game, Ashes, just send us a DM. You can do it here on Twitch at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. You can do it on Twitter. I'm at Dinfire. Or to Sifted on Twitter at SiftedGames. Or you can send me a DM on Sifted where I am at Shane. Any of those will work. And I'll get back to you and get you your free code. Congratulations once again. And we do have about 10 minutes for Q&A if you guys are interested. As always, put your questions at Sifted Games so we can pluck them out of the rest of the conversation. And we already have a smorgasbord of some questions already. I think I saw Vincent ask one. Yeah. Thoughts on Unity trying to bankrupt indie devs? That's funny because Matt asked me why it wasn't on the rundown before the show today. And I just told him that I just thought it was too in the weeds. And I didn't think our audience, even our audience, would want to hear about it. So
I mean, it's basically another, like, what?
Just
How?
Really dumb. That's my first thought is just dumb. Like, why and dumb? Like,
they should remove Ricciardi for that.
Yeah. I mean, somebody should get fired.
Unbelievably stupid.
Because it literally may have just killed their business. Even just someone talking about it, it's like too late now. You can't put
like
the
mid
and
small level publishers are never going to touch Unity again.
It's crazy.
Because they're going to be a word that's going to happen again.
Again, contact the Duh Consulting Agency or just email Shane at sifted.net. Give me $500 and I'll keep you from making the dumbest mistake of your life. It's crazy. I don't know. I have no idea why it would do that. Unless it was just struggling so horribly financially, which it wasn't, though. Like, by all accounts, it was doing fine financially. So, I don't know what was going on there. It was a dumb move, and it
probably just greed.
And it literally may have just completely doomed Unity. It's crazy.
Yep. Meanwhile, Unreal's like, hey, did you know in our contract, if you don't like an update we make, you can just stick with the old version and nothing changes?
Yeah. Zed Saber Juno, why have you not done Name That Game using games from the PS2, Xbox, or earlier generations? I've done a few.
Been a couple.
But I consider our audience, most of you guys aren't as old as Matt and I don't want everyone, I want people to win, I guess is what I'm getting
those aren't that old.
What'd you say?
Those aren't that old.
PS2, Xbox, 20 years old.
Yeah.
That's
most
old.
of these people are in their 30s. They would have been playing that as kids. They're probably going to be better at those.
Yeah,
frankly.
Maybe, actually. I've considered it. The other problem, too, is that, like, they look so bad that, like, when you put them in that little window, it just...
Yeah, some of them are just going to be smudges.
Yeah, it's like, they don't work that well, but duly noted, I will consider...
Although every once in a while, like Guess the Game a couple weeks ago did Pac-Man.
Oh.
And, like, you'd be shocked at how hard it is to tell what a power pellet is when it has no context around it.
Right. Yeah, it's just a dot. Yeah. And I've thought about it. I've fiddled around with it, too, with, like, some of, like, the 16-bit and 8-bit games. We did Pitfall not that long ago.
Yeah.
Perfect example. And you guys got that like that, which made me not want to do it again. So, just so you know, I just think it works better with modern games, but I'll...
Just pull out one of the most obscure Atari 2600 games you could ever remember, like that fucking Colgate thing.
I was just home, and I saw in my old bedroom at my mom's house my stack of Atari 2600 games. Like, Riddle of the Sphinx was on top of one of the stacks. Like, there's a bunch of just random games. But again, you look at the art, like, when I was a kid, I looked at the art, and that's what I built in my mind of what the games are supposed to look like. It's really funny. I love how Milo Pintor gifted a Tier 1 sub to Ashes in the Hourglass after he won Name That Game. You're good people. OCD Master 1. Where does Starfield stand in the Game of the Year conversation for you guys personally? I don't want to talk about Game of the Year yet. I know every other podcast does like a bi-monthly Game of the Year check-in. We hold our cards close to our vest until we do our Game of the Year awards at the end of the year. So you'll have to glean that information based upon how we talk about each game throughout the year, and you have to wait until our Game of the Year awards at the end of the year. AJ the Legend Watson, how do you plan on attacking October? I don't know. Like I talked about this earlier in the show. I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to do our best. That's all I can say, to try to cover everything. That's all we can do. There's so many games coming out. So we'll figure it out. We'll get a plan together. And
only one of them matters, though.
Only one?
Spider-Man.
Well, that's the only one that matters to you in October?
You're going to have to remind me what else comes out that month.
Well, you'll finish Spider-Man in like a day or two. I mean, those games are generally like 15 hours long. Mm-hmm. Unless this was an anomaly, which it could be.
I think this one's going to surprise people. It'll be pretty big.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't... Well, what else is in October?
I mean, it's like everything's coming out in that month.
Forza...
Alan Wake, like it just goes on and on.
You're gonna have to keep going until you get to a game I care about.
I hear you. Mellow Pintor also has given 10 gift subs in the channel. Thank you, man. That's really awesome. We appreciate it. Making people feel welcome when they come here. You guys are almost as important to that as we are. So you guys are awesome, and we appreciate it. Who else we got? Swanlin. Are these pictures in order of how they occur in the game? Like, no. Definitely not.
No.
Like, I'll be honest with you.
I didn't even realize Frame did that for movies until you said that, but you're right. The pictures on that are in order in the movie.
Yeah. The hardest part, honestly, for some of these games is finding 5 good screenshots that I can show you in sequence that eventually reveal things so you don't get it, like, on the first one. Like, I know you guys may not think it, but there's a lot of thought and work that goes into name that game, and it's really sad for me whenever I do that and you guys guess it on the first image, but that's the way it goes. So no, like I couldn't really do that and make it a good game, I don't think. Eric Cartmenez, what week will Canada get fired? I don't think that they'll fire him, unfortunately. For whatever reason, Mike Tomlin seems to love him, and the Steelers, I don't know if they've ever fired a coach midseason, ever. In like the franchise's entire history. So I don't think they'll fire him. I think they'll just ride it out, or they'll keep him on the team and someone else on the team will actually start calling the plays, and they'll just make it look like he's still calling the plays. That's just not how the Steelers operate, for better or worse. Blitch is 9. Do you guys think we'll ever get a Rockstar game that isn't GTA or Red Dead? So tired of that 2-game cycle. That's a really good question.
Yeah, Bully 2. Which clearly exists.
It exists, but it may never come out.
Yeah.
Like, Rockstar's...
I'll tell you this one. I don't think we're ever going to get another Red Dead.
Really?
No.
How come?
Because Red Dead 2, for all the praise, clearly did not do what they wanted it to do.
It sold like 40 or 50 million copies.
But they want it to be an eternal online thing.
I get that, but 40 or 50 million copies is a lot, man. I don't. That's like the third best-selling game of all time.
But this is Rockstar, and they're crazy.
Yeah, and they are. They are.
Like maybe only the only company with less realistic expectations for things than Square.
Yeah.
And I feel like because the online portion of that did not hit the way they wanted it to, they will probably drift away from it.
I mean, I think the chances of that are slim, because it just takes them so long to make the games that like that 2-game cycle is like a 13-year cycle. Mm-hmm. And both games have proven to sell through the roof. Like Bully didn't sell that well. All their other franchises sold okay, but not amazing. And to Matt's point, like, I think their expectations for sales are so high at this point. I would say maybe a new IP has a better chance of breaking that cycle than one of their old IP, because they already know what that old IP can do.
Bully 2 clearly exists.
It does.
Like, there's way too much smoke.
Oh, yeah.
But, like, will they ever put it out? Who knows? I mean, the rumor is this is the 3rd version of it.
Right.
So who knows?
Yeah. Okay, we'll answer one more before we go. Oh my gosh, El Guapo. Stig just left EA. Did you see that?
Yeah, it happened right as the show was starting.
No way. Where do you think he lands next? Why did he leave?
No, I didn't see it.
Maybe because they promoted somebody else above him?
Maybe he doesn't want to make another Star Wars game.
It seemed like he loves Star Wars. Where did he land? He could land anywhere.
Wherever he wants.
Wherever he wants, really. I mean...
Anybody would take him.
Yeah, he's great.
You'd be crazy not to take him.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. Like, EA, that's a mistake by EA. They should have done what they needed to keep him.
Yeah. Unless he left for other reasons, I don't know.
I don't know. I feel like his boss is probably going to get promoted to heights at EA. And I think maybe Stig...
Whatever that's worth.
I mean, money and power and prestige a lot at EA.
Well,
I wonder if
I don't know
Stig then
prestige.
hoped that he would get promoted to studio head at Respawn, and maybe that didn't happen. I don't know. I'm just making stuff
I
up.
don't know.
But that's crazy. EA screwed up majorly by not keeping him. They should have done whatever they could to keep him, and obviously they didn't. So that's a shame. I'm surprised to hear that. Like, really surprised. Yeah. Okay, well, that's going to do it for GameFace 357. It's awesome to be back. It's awesome to do the show again. Thanks to everybody who showed up on this off day, this Wednesday. I totally get it that that's out of the ordinary for us. And you guys have schedules that you keep and all that kind of stuff, so we really appreciate you guys showing up. Thanks to all our patrons and subscribers on Sifted and all those people who were patient while I was gone for a week on vacation. You didn't get GameFace last week, and I do apologize for that, but I think I filled in the gaps pretty well. I know I busted my butt trying to do it, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the content that came through the channels while I was out. If you're watching the show on YouTube or you're listening to it on any of the podcast services, and it's on all of them, please head to patreon.com/sifted, that's SIFTD without the E, and give us a pledge. It's $4 a month. It really is crazy how hard it is to get people to spend $4 a month on hours of entertainment versus like a coffee, like that's gone in 5 minutes. It's weird how people value their money in strange ways, but if you could see it, find it in your good heart to help us out. We're grinding along here doing our best. We're not making much money. Head to patreon.com/sifted and drop us a pledge. And if you don't have any money, I get it. I've been there. I'm kind of there right now. You can still help us out with Twitch Prime, and if you're watching the show on YouTube, the instructions to do that are down below. Or if you're just one of our patrons or one of our subscribers on Sifted, please go do that now, because a lot of you guys have stopped doing it, and we'd really appreciate it. It makes a big, big difference for us. Once again, thanks to LS Cream and SoundWizardry.com for sponsoring GameFace. It makes a big, big difference for us, and we appreciate them so much. So you guys have a good week. We'll be back in 6 days here with another episode of GameFace with another round of games to talk about, and we're excited about it. So we'll see you next Tuesday right here at twitch.tv/siftedgames. Until then, have a great week. GameFace is up and out.